Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. People in Marvel. I become apprentice mage in Kamar Taj at the beginning. Chapter 1. Nepal, Kathmandu. The legendary magical shrine of Kamar Taj is located in this place. As for the exact location, no one in Kathmandu knows. For those in the wizarding world, Kamar Taj is a legend. Sacred and mysterious legends. And the origin of all these legends comes from the first powerhouse in the magical world, the supreme mage, Jong. After winning the mage conference for centuries in a row, Kamar Taj, a magical sanctuary founded by Jong, has also become famous. Many practitioners in the wizarding world want to join Kamar Taj. However, few people can find this place. Although Kamar Taj is a teacher. But you also have to go in and someone will teach you. It's just that few people know. Those who can enter Kamar Taj are all people who were chosen by Jong. And those who are not selected, even if they squeeze their heads, they will not be able to enter. And because of this, Kamar Taj, this place will be the dream sanctuary of many mages. At this time, the mage temple of Kamar Taj was holding a meeting of mages. As a master brother, since ancient times, Kamar Taj has handed over big and small affairs to Mordo to manage. Recently, the ruler of the dark dimension, Dormammu, has attracted more and more believers on Earth. Cassius, you will come with me to New York later to guide the work of the newcomers, so I will leave it to Berkeley for the time being. As for Kamar Taj's other big and small affairs, Wong took over first. Very daily mage meetings, Mordo handed over the daily work of Kamar Taj. It's just that some people rejoice and some people worry. Hearing that the senior brother actually handed over the apprentice training work to him, Berkeley was stunned, and said with some embarrassment, "Me? Senior brother, I have just been promoted to a trainee mage, isn't it good to teach now?" Mordo shook his head and comforted Berkeley with a smile. "Berkeley, you are the best one in the previous batch of apprentices, just some basic secret methods of the new apprentices, you don't have to worry too much." When the words fell, seeing that Berkeley still seemed to be a little hesitant, he said busily, "You are only temporary, and when we return in a few days, we will be responsible for Cassius." The matter of teaching apprentices, since ancient times, has been entrusted to Mordo. Later, because there were too many people and complicated affairs, Mordo was handed over to the mage Cassius. But for a while, Dormammu's movements became bigger and bigger. New York is in big trouble. All of Kamar Taj's official mages, except for Wong, must go to New York. Therefore, the matter of guiding apprenticeships can only be left to Berkeley for the time being. Although Wong is a very senior archmage. However, he also had the important task of managing the library. You must know that the library of Kamar Taj is the most important place besides the ancient temple. So Wong, who was going to manage the library, obviously didn't have time to teach apprentices. Although, Mordo was also a little worried that Berkeley's three-legged cat spell teaching would mislead people. But, special period. There is no way. Berwick was slightly relieved to hear Mordo say this, and cautiously asked Mordo, "Then, senior brother, when will you come back?" "Probably a week away. Just teach your apprentices the most basic introductory secret first." Mordo sighed. "Wave, disperse." The mages saluted, left, and performed their duties. Only Berkeley had a bitter look on his face and stood there without leaving. Cassius, who was preparing to leave, stepped forward. Seeing Cassius, Berkeley hurriedly saluted, "Senior brother." Cassius nodded and asked expressionlessly, "Are you dissatisfied with senior brother Mordo's arrangement?" Berkeley quickly shook his head and said, "How come, senior brother? I'm just worried that my practice is still shallow and can't convince those apprentices, and you are the apprentice I taught. You shouldn't worry." Before Berkeley's words were finished, Cassius interrupted sharply, and without waiting for Berkeley to speak again, Cassius said again, "You are the best of the previous apprentices. In any case, you can't smash my signboard at Kamar Taj. I don't want to hear others say that the apprentices I taught are useless." Berkeley's heart trembled and he quickly shut up. He looked at Cassius's cold and serious face, wearing a brown monk's robe, with his hands behind him, and the wind blowing, like a peerless master. Suddenly, Berkeley was a little lost in thought. Understood. At this moment, Cassius scolded angrily again. Berkeley will only come to his senses. "I know, brother." Berkeley nodded firmly. When Cassius left, Berkeley raised his head and straightened his chest, followed Cassius's appearance, and walked towards the training ground with his hands behind him. The conversation with Cassius made Berkeley understand a truth. It doesn't matter if it's awesome or not. Pretending is important. Oh, I actually got into Kamar Taj. It's incredible. I'm so nervous right now. I'm about to start learning magic. I don't know if I can see the true face of the Supreme Mage in Kamar Taj. It doesn't matter if I can meet the Supreme Mage or not, I just hope to learn something. I was really afraid that if I didn't have a good talent, Kamar Taj would not want me. On an empty training ground. At a glance, dozens of people were uniformly dressed in plain clothing. They had different looks on their faces, worried, excited, and more excited. They talked, their eyes full of expectation, not noticing at all the ostentatious in the crowd. No, sir, I actually traveled to the Marvel world. Also inexplicably became the apprentice of Kamar Taj. At this time, Jong Yong was a little panicked and a little confused. He just slept at home, opened his eyes and came to such a ghost place. When I heard the people talking about it just now, I knew. This is Kamar Taj, Supreme Mage. Isn't this the Marvel Universe? Although he has only watched Avengers 3 inches, Jong Yong also knows very well in his heart what Marvel is. Alien invasion at every turn. Superpowers blow up the street. Psychic, superhumans, mages, and alien creatures emerge one after another. Good to die or not to die. He is still just an ordinary person. Looking at the apprentices in monk robes around them one by one, Jong Yong could not be excited at all. With a long sigh, Jong Yong was about to observe the surroundings. Suddenly, a cold voice sounded in everyone's ears. What place do you think Kamar Taj is? What is magic? I don't have any confidence at all, and I still come to learn magic. Jing. The apprentices present, including Jong Yong, followed the prestige and looked at the source of the voice. It was a petite girl, who looked no more than 17 or 8 years old, but her figure was very hot. Kamar Taj's plain monk's uniform did not cover the girl's bumpy figure, but instead set off her charm. However, the girl's cold and frosty face knew at a glance that she was a character who was not easy to mess with. Who are you? In the crowd, a young man asked the girl with a frown. The young man looked at the girl. His face showed dissatisfaction. My name is Ellie, and I am the future Supreme Mage. The girl named Avery raised her chin and said word by word to the young man. The look on the girl's face was unusually firm. A powerful aura was exuded from all over his body, which was in stark contrast to these apprentices in the training ground. It didn't look like an apprentice who hadn't practiced magic at all. As soon as this powerful aura came out, it shocked the shouting youth. The young man's face showed a bit of comfort. This is Kamar Taj. Powerful mages abound. In the absence of knowing the details of the other party, no one dares to make a rash move. Jong Yong, who was observing everything on the side, looked at the woman named Avery and then looked around the spacious training ground. There was a hesitation in my heart. Although now Jong Yong wants to go. However, I have to admit that the place of Kamar Taj is the territory of Ji Yuyi. As a supreme mage, Ji Yuyi's strength is also one of the best in the Marvel world. For Jong Yong, who does not have any ability now, Kamar Taj is really a novice village that is more suitable to stay. Moreover, the place of Kamar Taj, although it looks simple, does not have a golden splendor as a magical holy place. But the problem is, Ji Yuyi's territory is not something you can go out if you want to go out, and you can come in if you want to. Jong Yong remembers that when he came to watch Avengers 3 inches, Kamar Taj's mages could go anywhere with a wave of the portal. If you want to leave Kamar Taj, you must first learn to open the portal. Otherwise, now open an ordinary person, walk out of Kamar Taj, in case of encountering some villain blowing up the street, won't he be dead? No way, who let him cross over to Marvel? Another sigh. Just when Jong Yong had just made his decision, suddenly, there was a noise around him. Who is that? How is the clothes he wears different from ours? He looks so dignified. Is it Kamar Taj's mage? Quick, stand up. Seeing him like this, it should not be simple. At this time, the apprentices' gaze had shifted from Eli's body to the others. It was a man in a brown monk's robes. With more than 30 appearances, with his hands behind his back, he walked towards the crowd. The man was expressionless and looked cold. With each step, the monk's robes on his body fluttered in the wind, and he looked like he had been practicing for a long time, like a peerless master. The powerful aura shook the originally somewhat noisy training ground, and it was silent for a while. Even Avery, who had just been proud, obediently stood in the crowd. Jong Yong also stood well with the crowd. Watching the man slowly approach, with sharp eyes, he scanned all the apprentices on the training ground. "My name is Berkeley, and I am responsible for teaching you the secret method, and from now on, you will call me Senior Brother Berkeley." Berkeley. For Jong Yong, the name Berkeley, he had never heard of it. In Marvel, the mages Jong Yong knows, in addition to Ji Yuyi and Doctor Strange, are the kings who like to listen to Beyoncé music. But, in Marvel, magic has always been a powerful presence. Jong Yong estimated in his heart that there should be more than one or two powerful mages of Kamar Taj. Moreover, Berkeley looks like he is not smiling. It's really a bit of a worldly taste. In the end, it is a person who practices secret law. From the temperament, you can feel different from ordinary people. Being able to deter Avery, who just clamored that he would become a supreme mage in the future, must also have a bit of a foundation. After all, Jong Yong has not been here for a day, and he does not know about Kamar Taj, nor has he seen magic with his own eyes. Anyway, now Jong Yong is here to study, and you must remain humble. Jong Yong thought to himself. Berkeley spoke again. "Mage, it's not so good. We need your determination to endure hardships and perseverance. Of course, you also need to have a certain talent, and the determination to die at any time. Get off the horse." Classic pretend quotes. Berkeley's words are giving all apprentices a dismount. But obviously, these words are very deterrent. As soon as Berkeley finished speaking, the expressions on the faces of the apprentices who were still full of excitement before immediately became serious. Even Jong Yong was a little serious. Although he was forced to appear in Kamar Taj, since he decided to learn magic, he couldn't do it casually. Otherwise, if you learn a half-hanging magic, if you walk out of Kamar Taj who is sheltered by Ji Yuyi, you will have to face the boss who invaded the earth in the future, and I am afraid that I can't escape. Not to mention that Jong Yong has to reach the ancient level, but Doctor Strange's magic still has to be learned. Jong Yong secretly made up his mind. "Now, I teach you the first steps in learning magic. Raise your hands, focus your attention, and empty everything. Chant magic spells in your heart. If you find this spell a bit unrealistic, you can also call the language a program. Feel the energy of your nature, the spell, already in your mind. Pretending to end, no superfluous words." Berkeley began teaching elementary magic. He said as he demonstrated. "Raise your hands, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and continue in your mouth. Feel the power given to you in the universe, and then chant the spell, gather energy, and pull out magical rays." With the end of Berkeley's words, Berkeley's hand slowly pulled away, and a yellow, shining magic light appeared in Berkeley's hand. "Oh my God, if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. It's amazing. Senior Brother Berkeley actually drew a ray of light out of thin air. The magic is incredible. How exactly is this done?" The faces of all the apprentices were surprisingly shocked, and they all opened their mouths wide, as if they had just witnessed a miracle. They jumped and tried to do it the Berkeley way. However, no one could pull out the magic light, not even a little light. Avery, who was originally full of confidence in himself, also had a strange look on his face. There was a hint of obsession and determination in her eyes, and she began to draw magic rays according to Berkeley's instructions. However, after trying several times, the result was not much better than others. Praise and exclamations flooded Berkeley's ears. See the apprentices constantly failing. Berkeley's apprehensive heart finally breathed a sigh of relief. Originally, Berkeley was also worried that one of his trainee mage teaching apprentices would not be qualified, so he deliberately pretended to be cold in order to calm these apprentices. Now it seems that the effect is not bad. Berkeley felt a little relieved, and his face was still serious. He put his hands behind his back and said sharply, "Harder. Focus." Soon. While talking, he shuttled through the apprentices, as if he was looking at the progress of those apprentices. Until he walked in front of Jong Yong, couldn't help but stop, his brows wrinkled slightly, and he asked Jong Yong sharply with a somewhat displeased expression, "Why don't you practice with your hands?" This reprimand pulled Jong Yang's thoughts back. He had just recalled how Doctor Strange had drawn those magical weapons and shields when he watched Avengers 3 inches before. I forgot to do it for a while. Senior brother, I'll try it now, Jong Yong said quickly. Berkeley nodded, looking at Jong Yang's well-behaved appearance. Just like when he entered Kamar Taj, his tone couldn't help but be a little softer, and said to Jong Yong, "Failure is not terrible, what is scary is that you dare not do it. Don't be afraid, try." Berkeley's encouragement gave Jong Yong a lot of confidence and a touch of warmth. In the end, it is a practitioner. The meaning of practicing magic is to cultivate ability, and it is also to cultivate the mind. Feel Berkeley's believing gaze. Jong Yong took a deep breath. After all, it was the first time to learn magic, and I was a little nervous. He listened to Berkeley's instructions. Put aside distractions, concentrate, and feel the energy, spells, from this multiverse, right in your mind. Imagine what Doctor Strange looks like when he casts shield magic. Jong Yong raised his hands. For a moment, his mind seemed to be a computer that had been injected with a lot of information, and there were constantly pictures and strange words flashed in his mind. Those pictures, words, slowly wandered from his mind. It traveled throughout his body, infused his soul, and reached his hands. With the open hands slowly pulling away, a yellow magic light appeared in front of everyone. Berkeley, Avery, apprentices, ignoring the gazes of others. Jong Yong followed the image in his mind, drew a circle with both hands, and opened it, drew a square of light, and then closed his hands. Boom! A shining magic shield levitated in front of Jong Yong. It also surfaced in front of the eyes of everyone at the training ground. With the appearance of the magic shield, Berkeley's face slowly changed from expressionless at first to shock. Although he tried very hard to restrain his expression. Don't let yourself be too exaggerated. But the suddenly dilated pupils still betrayed him. At the moment, Berkeley couldn't even believe his eyes. Demon, magic shield. This guy unexpectedly cast a magic shield directly. In essence, the magic shield also belongs to the basic magic of Kamar Taj, very simple magic. Only, an apprentice who learns magic for less than 10 minutes. After listening to your own words, you can draw a complete magic shield. That's a bit of a stretch. You know, it took Berkeley a whole week to draw the magic light alone, not to mention the complex magic shield. He studied for a month to draw it. Have you been exposed to magic before? Berkeley couldn't help but ask questions in his heart. Jong Yong waved his hand, erased the magic shield and shook his head. This made Berkeley's heart can't help but be shocked again. Although it is said that there is a talent for learning magic, the problem is, this kid is so talented. Looking at the expression on Berkeley's face that didn't know whether he was satisfied or dissatisfied, Jong Yong couldn't help but ask, "Senior brother, how?" Ideographic period. The flamboyant words pulled Berkeley's thoughts back. Looking at Jong Yang's humble face, Berkeley couldn't help but sigh in his heart. There are really not many people who can have such talent and such modesty, and they can't help but feel good about Jong Yong in their hearts. But in order not to make Jong Yong a novice who has just started too proud, he suppressed the shock in his heart, and said calmly on his face, reluctantly. With that, Berkeley continued, there are many types of magic shields. The stronger the magic power of the mage, the harder the magic shield will be drawn, and you will need to practice more, and Berkeley raised his head and straightened his chest, paused, and continued profoundly. Moreover, magical energy can not only draw shields, but also sharp weapons, such as swords, knives, whips and other sharp weapons. You've just drawn your shield, and now you can try to draw other sharp weapons. Of course, different sharp weapons, spells and energy are different, these need to be realized. Berkeley's earnest words to the apprentices nodded repeatedly. I can't help but feel the depth of magic. Jong Yong also nodded after hearing this. Jong Yong is now very clear about his position and identity. His newbie village is in Kamar Taj. There is a big guy who shook the entire multiverse, Ji, who is suppressing. The purpose of Jong Yang's learning magic is to make himself stronger. It's just an introductory magic, and he has to work harder to learn more powerful magic. I know, senior brother, I will continue to practice, Jong Yong said. Looking at Jong Yang's humble and studious and serious look, Berkeley couldn't help but say, okay, let's do this today. Cultivators who learn to draw magic rays can learn to draw magic shields by themselves, and then draw some others. Those who have not learned, practice more by themselves. To practice magic, you need to learn more, feel more, communicate more, and most importantly, understand more. Isn't it? Senior brother Berkeley only taught that person once, and that person can already draw magic shields. What's wrong with being able to draw magic shields? Senior brother didn't say that this is the most basic. Magic energy can also draw magic weapons. It's the same. It seems to be like this. Kamar Taj is a magical holy place, and there are many high-level secret methods. But we'll have to work harder. Brother Berkeley left. A few apprentices started talking. Most of the content of the discussion is the performance of Jong Yong just now. It's just that this Jong Yong has already gone to get acquainted with the dormitory and can't hear these people's discussions. But Avery heard. Ailey, who was originally going to practice more at the training ground, couldn't help but frown after hearing the chatter of these people. She is most unwilling to see this kind of villain who talks about others behind her back. In particular, it also affects her practice. 3 or 2 steps forward, Ailey said to the apprentices gathered around, "Shut up. With this kung fu is not good practice. Talk about others. Can you learn what the senior brother just taught?" Avery has a hot personality as much as his figure. The tone of voice is not very good. This angered the apprentices who were talking. Among these apprentices, there are young people who were previously afraid of Ailey. "Who do you think you are? Actually came to order us." The young man was a little annoyed and stepped forward to vent his dissatisfaction at Avery. "I said, my name is Eli, and I am the future supreme mage." Avery looked at the young man, sneered, and raised his hand to draw a magic light in his hand. This made the young man's eyes stunned. You have learned to draw magic rays." Avery said disdainfully. "People with talent are working hard, but you people who are not talented enough, don't work hard. I really don't know what qualifications you have." When the words fell, Avery looked at him. Frightened, the young man and his partner couldn't help but tremble. The person next to him quickly walked to the young man's ear and whispered, "Barlow, forget it, she seems to be very powerful. Moreover, this is Kamar Taj. We looked for a long time before finally coming in. Practice is important." Listening to the persuasion of others, Barlow took a deep breath and said to Eli, "Don't be so arrogant, open your mouth and shut up to become a supreme mage. You think becoming a supreme mage is easy. Just that kid, much more talented than you." Avery did not change his face. "So what, as long as I work hard, one day I will become a supreme mage, and by that time, it is estimated that you will still only evaluate at will behind the back of others." With that, Avery turned and left the training ground. It doesn't seem to want to say another word to them. She walked briskly towards Kamar Taj's apprentice canteen. Passing by the boys' dormitory, Avery stopped and glanced inside. Her delicate brows furrowed slightly, and she secretly decided in her heart, from now on, this man will be my competitor. "I'm so sleepy." Standing up from the bed, Jong Yong yawned and couldn't help but sigh. After listening to Berkeley's words yesterday, Jong Yong went back and thought about it for a whole night. A general arrangement of the things in my mind and the fragmented information. It has to be said. Kamar Taj is truly a magical place, and magic is also truly mysterious. Senior brother Berkeley just drew a magic light, and there were so many universities asking in it. No wonder he said that practicing magic requires more understanding. This will make sense in Jong Yang's heart. The world of Marvel is truly wonderful and huge. He had to learn more. Gu did not rest all night, and early in the morning, Jong Yong got up and ran to the training ground. There was only Jong Yong in the empty training ground, but Jong Yong was not idle, and he continued to feel it seriously. But after a while, the first person on the training ground besides Jong Yong, Avery. Seeing Jong Yong, Avery was obviously a little surprised. She thought that she had come early enough, but what she never expected was that Jong Yong came earlier. Avery looked at the openness of closing his eyes a little distractedly, as if he was meditating, and he couldn't help but feel a little respect in his heart. Having talent is not terrible. What is scary is that talented people work harder than you. This time, Avery secretly made up his mind again. From now on, she must come earlier than Jong Yong. Kamar Taj, library. Early in the morning, Berkeley came to salute the king. It is to ask for peace, but also to report the matter of the apprentice. As always, Wong sat at the front of the library, looking at the magic books very seriously. Berkeley walked in, and Wong did not look up, but asked in a calm tone, "How does it feel to teach people for the first time?" Berkeley hurriedly said, "Very good, Archmage. This is very good and true. If you put aside the surprise, there is nothing wrong with the rest." But Berkeley couldn't ignore the ostentatiousness. Among this batch of apprentices, there is an apprentice with a decent talent. Berkeley reported truthfully to Wong. The king didn't seem to take this to heart. After all, there are always one or two apprentices with better talents. It's just a pity. There are not many who can meet the expectations of the ancient mage. There are very few who can endure the hardships of cultivation. If you have a good talent, teach it well. Wong Feng said lightly, turned a page, and did not say any more. Apparently, this was meant to signal Berkeley to leave. Berkeley gestured, saluted and walked towards the training ground. By the time we walked to the training ground, everyone was almost there. Berkeley glanced at all the apprentices and finally set his gaze on Jong Yong. As if sensing Berkeley's gaze, Jong Yong showed a smile. But at the age of 17 or 8, he smiled especially brightly. This made Berkeley's liking for ostentatious strengthen a little more. Berkeley stepped forward and asked Jong Yong, "What's your name?" Although it was still an expressionless face, his tone was much softer. Jong Yong replied respectfully, "Jong Yong." Berkeley nodded and said to the group of apprentices, "Who else can learn magic light besides Jong Yong?" Jing. There was a dead silence. No one spoke. The apprentices looked at each other with wide eyes and small eyes, and did not dare to speak. At this moment, a firm and cold voice came from the crowd, "Me." Avery raised his hand and walked in front of Berkeley. Berkeley's heart trembled. No way. He learned magic light for a week. This session, 2 people learned it in 1 day. Berkeley thought to himself, still expressionless on his face, "Try it." Receiving the signal, Avery raised her hand very confidently and pulled out a magic light between her hands, and then she did not stop, but continued to draw the magic shield just like yesterday. Following yesterday's flamboyant action, Avery repeated. Soon, a magic shield floating in the air appeared. There was a chorus of praise from all around. This will make Berkeley's heart not calm. No way. This apprentice, are they all demons? Yesterday, a Jong Yong drew a magic shield after 10 minutes of watching. Today another girl popped up, and in just 1 day, she also drew a magic shield. Berkeley suddenly felt a little stressed. Such pressure made Berkeley lift his chin, as if he wanted to look more majestic. He nodded at Avery and said, "Barely. What is your name?" Avery looked firm. "Senior brother, my name is Avery. I want to be the future supreme mage." Avery caused an uproar. A different expression appeared on each apprentice's face. Even Berkeley couldn't help but be stunned. Although this sounds a little arrogant, it makes Jong Yong appreciate it a little. Those who dare to think are always much stronger than those who dare not think. It's good to have this goal, and I hope that you can try to achieve it. Although he was a little surprised that Avery would say this, Berkeley did not accuse, but seemed to agree. He encouraged Avery and at the same time said to all the apprentices, "I know that each of you came to Kamar Taj with a purpose, that I hope that you can accomplish your goals through magic, and at the same time, you must not forget the purpose of Kamar Taj to protect the earth. Get the timing right." Berkeley was preaching and pretending. Seeing those apprentices nodding affirmatively, and their eyes lit up with fighting spirit, Berkeley suddenly changed his tone. "However, it is not so easy to become a supreme mage. As a mage, hard work and talent are very important. But the most important thing is to be savvy. Magic is esoteric, so understanding is important. As I said yesterday, magical energy can not only pull magic rays and shields, but also create magic weapons. Eli, what else have you realized besides the magic shield?" Avery looked startled and shook his head a little embarrassed. Just drawing the magic shield. Avery practiced all night, how can he have time to understand anything else? Berkeley smiled slightly. "It's okay, keep going." Phew. Okay. Relieved, he looked at Jong Yong again. "What about you? What else did you learn after going back to practice yesterday?" Seeing Berkeley's question, Jong Yong couldn't help but sigh with emotion. "Senior brother Wei, magic is really mysterious." Berkeley nodded. "Of course mysterious." He looked at Jong Yang's expression and saw Jong Yang's sighing look. The stone in the heart was laid down. Berkeley thought without thinking. Looking at him like this, he should not have realized anything. It's okay, it's okay. There are quite a few apprentices in this batch of talents. If I learn too quickly, I'm afraid I won't have anything to teach if senior brother Cassius comes back. Berkeley thought to himself, exhaling again. However, before this breath was finished, Jong Yong spoke again. I thought about it for a whole night last night, and I probably realized more than 300 magic weapon spells. However, it stunned everyone present, including Berkeley. Berkeley, rip it off. I just threw a magic light in front of Jong Yong, and he can comprehend more than 300 magic weapon drawing methods. Berkeley, like Berkeley said before, the spells and energy of each weapon are different. Although there is only a slight difference between these spells and energy. But it's not so easy to realize. Berkeley spent a full year at Kamar Taj. With his current ability, he has realized the drawing of 5 sharp weapons. Knives, swords, spears, whips, and ropes. And according to his understanding, he was already strong in the previous batch of apprentices. But now, Jong Yong actually said that he had realized more than 300 sharp weapon drawing methods. Who is confused? Moreover, even if Jong Yong really could draw several weapons, there can't be more than 300 kinds, right? It is said that there are 18 martial arts. If Jong Yong pulled 18 things, Berkeley could barely believe it. But now he said that he had learned more than 300 sharp weapon drawing methods. You didn't learn magic. Bah, swindler. Berkeley frowned slightly. His expression seemed a little annoyed. The apprentices around were originally amazed when they heard Jong Yang's words, but when they saw Berkeley's expression, they all quieted down in an instant. All the apprentices looked at Berkeley in unison, not knowing why. Originally, Jong Yong realized these more than 300 magic weapon drawing methods, and there was still some small pride in his heart. I thought that senior brother Berkeley should give a few words of praise and teach himself more things by the way. Not at the moment. The expression on senior brother Berkeley's face actually made Jong Yong see a little annoyed. This made Jong Yong a little incomprehensible. Where does Jong Yong know what Berkeley thinks at the moment? Ooh, starting to pretend. I drew a line. You can draw more than 300 kinds of graphics. The more you cultivate magic, the more you float, and you also cultivate a sense of superiority. Little junior brother, you pretended to force it, don't blame me for hitting you in the face. Berkeley crooked his mouth and sneered, did not say too much nonsense, and said to Jong Yong, come on, show. See what you'll get. A simple and direct sentence instantly attracted the attention of all the apprentices to Jong Yong, including Avery, although he has not yet recovered from his surprise. But Avery is still very honest and focuses on Jong Yang's body. At this time, her eyes were full of expectation and disbelief. Although Avery was a little surprised and sighed that Jong Yong could realize so much magic in one night, at the same time, she didn't believe it. Although Avery didn't want to doubt others, seeing is believing. Heard senior brother Berkeley let Jong Yong show. Avery cast his warm and direct gaze on Jong Yang's body. Seeing Jong Yong nodding, he first saluted Berkeley, and then arrived. Then, senior brother Berkeley, junior brother, I will get an axe in the class. The words fell. Jong Yong raised his hand, gathered his breath, and looked ahead with a serious expression. Energy meets, magic gathers. The magic light lit up in Jong Yang's hand. Soon, the patterns converged, suspended in front of Jong Yang's body, and displayed in front of everyone. With the change of ostentatious gestures, magic rays formed different weapons. Like slides, it flashed in front of Berkeley and the apprentices. Swords, knives, whips. Initially, Berkeley, although a little surprised, still lived. But the further back on, Berkeley became more confused. Practice magic. Talent is high and low, and understanding is good and bad. So practice is fast and slow. To say that Jong Yong can realize 18 kinds of weapons. Berkeley was shocked, but it was theoretically acceptable. After all, the spells and creations of these weapons can also be found in the library. But the question is, what the hell is Jong Yong who drew a pistol with magic? And submachine guns, machine gun, and even bullets. Are these things, Kamar Taj's magic really recorded? Now, the expression on Berkeley's face slowly changed from surprise at the beginning to shock, and now to dumbfounded. In his heart, it was as if there were thousands of grass and mud horses galloping by. Berkeley couldn't even help but think seriously. Is there any magic in Kamar Taj that can create pistols and bullets? Just when Berkeley was dumbfounded. In the next second, Jong Yong waved his big hand, and a red magic chain appeared in front of Berkeley, and this red chain completely stunned Berkeley. Scarlet chains. What the hell? Therefore, among the more than 300 sharp weapons that Jong Yong realized, there were even scarlet chains. Berkeley seemed worried that something was wrong with his eye. Raised his hand and quickly rubbed his eyes. However, no matter how many times he looked at it, Berkeley could be sure. Jong Yong really drew the scarlet chain. This is not a thing that can be realized by feeling natural energy. The scarlet chain was originally called the scarlet chain of Starak. Starak is the master of the Crimson Universe. The power of the red tank comes from the Crimson Universe. The formation of scarlet chains. It is necessary to feel the power of the Crimson Universe and condense it to complete it. At Kamar Taj, this is already high-level magic. To know the scarlet chain is a thing, ordinary superpowers, superhuman cannot break free at all. Once bound, that's the trap. Without the power of the universe level, it is difficult to break free. This fanfare, I actually saw him draw a line and put the scarlet chain out. Thinking about himself, he has been studying for a year, and it is amazing to draw a magic rope to limit the enemy. To draw scarlet chains. With his current progress, it is roughly estimated that it will take 10 years to practice without eating or drinking. If it is slow, it may be up in 20 years. Hiss. Phew. I twitched in my heart for several seconds. Berkeley steadied himself. What kind of talent is this flamboyant? This Nima is simply a genius. This understanding. Looking around, there are few people in the entire mage world who are more awesome than him. What exactly is his brain made of? Watching Jong Yong complete the display of the 300 sharp weapons, Berkeley's mind was so shocked that he could only hear the buzzing sound, and his scalp was numb. Originally, Berkeley was a little skeptical of what Jong Yong said. But now I am convinced. In less than 10 minutes, I learned to get started with magic and draw a magic shield. Overnight, he had an epiphany of 300 magic weapons. He also absorbed the power of the Crimson Universe in the other world and drew the scarlet chain. It's terrifying. Why, exactly? Everyone at Kamar Taj is a hardworking, diligent practice. Day after day, year after year. Spring and autumn, starting from the basics, step by step. Why can this bragging be able to learn the results of decades of other people's efforts overnight? What does he really have more than others? Just because he's young? Or is it because he is handsome? Oh Emperor Vishen, why are you so unfair? The mage who was born as Kamar Taj, could it be that I dragged down the overall mage level of Kamar Taj? At this time, Berkeley was a little depressed. Berkeley, who had originally cultivated some self-confidence in teaching apprentices, would have no confidence in the brazen. Depressed made him doubt life. The expression on his face that seemed to be smiling and twitching was confused. Full of question marks. Brother Berkeley, what's going on here? Senior brother, I have finished showing, please advise. Seeing that Berkeley did not react for a long time, Jong Yong asked without humility. Berkeley, however, did not react. Senior brother, Jong Yong called again. Only then did Berkeley react slightly, calmly uttering a syllable from his mouth, hum. Berkeley took a deep breath, his eyes were blank, and he looked at Jong Yong with a look of lovelessness. It's ordinary. Although, Berkeley knew, the flamboyance was strong. But, as a senior brother who teaches them, Berkeley must not let Jong Yong see that he is not as good as Jong Yong, otherwise, how can he establish his prestige in front of these apprentices? Listening to Berkeley's words, Jong Yong was stunned. Is this all just ordinary? Jong Yong, the magic industry, you have just started. Think about our supreme mages, think about the master brothers, think about those archmages. You must work harder and reach their realm as soon as possible. People must look high, must not be limited to the eyes. Just when Jong Yong was puzzled, Berkeley quickly said, that makes sense. There is no one who does not want to become stronger on their own. What Jong Yong knows now, compared to other archmages, is really not worth mentioning. Understand, senior brother, I will work harder. Jong Yong looked at Berkeley and asked seriously. Harder? God, your talent is so high, you still have to work hard. The existence of people like you is simply not giving others a way to live. If you try harder, learn faster. Where are the archmages going? Archmages are also so strong abilities that have only been learned for 10 years or even decades. With your current understanding, learn more magic. I'm afraid the archmage won't be able to suppress you. Berkeley's heart was roaring. Berkeley, however, was also clear if he told Jong Yong the truth. Jong Yong definitely left Kamar Taj in minutes. But now, the whole world is in turmoil. The Supreme Mage has been looking for someone who can fight against Dormammu, and he must not leave if he flaunts this kind of talent. Thinking of this, Berkeley looked at Jong Yong and said nonchalantly, "In fact, you don't have to work too hard. When it's time to sleep, you should sleep more." Berkeley didn't know where he came from, and said, "Okay," and mediocre to Jong Yong. But Berkeley didn't expect it. The first time he taught an apprentice, he actually met a genius. No, now that I think about it, saying that Jong Yong is a genius is a bit insulting to him. The word genius is not worthy of ostentatious at all. Berkeley knew it well. Jong Yong, this person, he can't teach anymore, he learns too fast. At this point, I can only go to the king. Very urgent. Instructions must be asked immediately. Cultivators who don't know magic light yet practice magic light in this class. As for Eli, you can now know magic shields, so you can understand the magic of other sharp weapons. Berkeley held back a trembling heart and announced to the apprentices what they had to do. Only ostentatiously, Berkeley didn't know what to let him do for a while. "Senior brother, what about me?" Without receiving the task, Jong Yong couldn't help asking. Berkeley hesitated for a while, then sighed helplessly, "Let's go back to sleep first." Berkeley is also helpless. People with such good talents, if they still work so hard. Do you want to give other mages a way to live? It's just that Jong Yong doesn't know this idea in Berkeley's mind. At this moment, he was a little confused by the second monk. Go to bed. What does it mean to go to sleep? Jong Yong seemed to want to ask, however, Berkeley had already left in a hurry. This made Jong Yong couldn't help but touch his head. I really can't understand what Brother Berkeley's intention is to let himself go to sleep. Forget it, go to sleep. Jong Yong went back to the dormitory to sleep for a while. Wait for Jong Yong to leave. A crazy buzz erupted at the training ground. You say, is this man called Jong Yong powerful or not? He had already mastered more than 300 sharp weapon magic in one night. I don't think it's good. If it's powerful, Senior Brother Berkeley will definitely let him hurry up and train. But you see now, Senior Brother actually let him go to sleep. I don't think so. Didn't Senior Brother say that he was ordinary? The apprentices were talking about it, and suddenly, a sharp voice came in. I tell you, people like Jong Yong like to be smart and like to do useless work. Avery didn't need to look to know that the person who spoke was Barlow. After all, this isn't the first time Barlow has done this. It's just that Avery didn't bother to remind him again and again. The guy who can't support the wall with mud. With a blank glance at Barlow, Avery walked a little farther to the side, and she looked at Jong Yang's figure leaving, and doubts appeared in her eyes. Really, this guy, really not a genius. Archmage. Amazing. Kamar Taj is a genius. Leave the training ground. Berkeley ran into the library without stopping. The king was still in the library listening to Beyoncé's music and reading books. Feel that someone has broken through the enchantment of the library. Wong frowned, and when he looked up, he saw Berkeley, who was shocked. What's going on? Panicked. Wong frowned and asked at Berkeley. Archmage. Amazing. Kamar Taj has a genius. As soon as Wang's words fell, the anxious Berkeley quickly said. Genius. Berkeley's words confused the king. Yes, Archmage, let me tell you, there is an apprentice named Jong Yong in this class of apprentices. Do you know yesterday I taught him introductory magic light, and then how is he? Berkeley looked at Wong and said with a melancholy on his face. He learned it today. Wong conservatively guessed. No, Archmage, you guess the mighty. Berkeley said quickly. Wong frowned. Guess a little harder. Could it be that he drew a magic shield? Wong asked. Berkeley was anxious and hurriedly said. It only took him 10 minutes to understand the drawing method of the magic shield, and after thinking about it for a night, he realized more than 300 kinds of sharp weapon magic transformations according to the magic light, and also created the scarlet chain. What? Scarlet chains. Berkeley's words sounded like a thunder in the king's ears. An apprentice who drew scarlet chains in one night. How is that possible? How could an apprentice obtain energy from another dimensional universe? Wong said incredulously. To know. The rare thing about creating the scarlet chain is not a spell, but how to ingest the energy of the crimson universe. No matter how talented an apprentice is, it is impossible to ingest energy from another dimension. Berkeley, when a liar dies, the soul will be beaten into the kingdom of the dead. Wong Jungs looked at Berkeley and said, his tone was very serious. Berkeley was anxious. Archmage, this is true. I really didn't lie to you. Looking at Berkeley's sincere face, Wong was a little convinced. But if that's really the case, the problem is a bit troublesome. Watch Berkeley draw a line and realize the magic of the scarlet chain. Judging by the absence of the supreme mage now, such an understanding, if you continue to learn, it is difficult for Kamar Taj to be able to shock him. You know, the scarlet chain, even a talented archmage like Wong has been practicing for 5 years. That Jong Yong, when no one taught him one night, realized it himself. Is his head open? Archmage, what do you want to do now? Does this Jong Yong still teach? Berkeley was a little flustered, looking at Wong and asking cautiously. Of course teach. If it really does what you say, you must drag him and not let him go. This extremely talented magic apprentice has to wait for the Supreme Mage to return, and the Supreme Mage will decide. Wong said seriously. But, Berkeley hesitated. He sighed and said with a bitter expression, Archmage, I have nothing more to teach him. According to the current ability of Jong Yong, Berkeley really can't beat Jong Yong to fight. Therefore, preaching is not ostentatious, and Berkeley really did not lie. Originally, Berkeley had some doubts about his ability, worried that he would not be able to teach apprentices, and now he is such a freak. The Berkeley mentality exploded. This Nima, how to teach? If Yong knows that his ability is no longer as good as him, this is not the end. Thinking of Jong Yong, Berkeley couldn't help but want to cry. He worked hard at Kamar Taj and studied for a year before turning from apprentice to trainee mage. Can be ostentatious, in a day's time, the ability is close to the archmage. People are really angry compared to people. What a crime. Archmage, I also want to teach people seriously, but I have a weak heart now, I really can't teach this person. Berkeley waved his hand and said with some sadness. He is now teaching Jong Yong, who has already taught some doubts about life. Who told you to teach seriously? Wong frowned. This guy, it's okay to teach seriously. The Supreme Mage still had a week to return with Master Brother Mordo and them. With Berkeley's flamboyant understanding, 2 days at most. Jong Yong may be able to surpass the king. If Jong Yong knew, he would definitely want to leave Kamar Taj. Therefore, Jong Yong must not be taught seriously. You teach him casually, the main thing is to drag him down. Such an enlightened talent, you have to come back from the ancient mage to be calm. Wong said seriously. No way, special period. Now Kamar Taj lacks the talent to defeat Dormammu, so he can only do so. Teach casually. Berkeley looked stunned, and looked at Wong busy. But Archmage, didn't you say that people with good talents should teach seriously? Wong was angry. This Berkeley, just don't be too straight. Special period, special method. Wong scolded angrily, took a deep breath and said, I tell you, your main purpose now is not to make him realize that he is very powerful. The main cultivation of cultivation is the heart. You have to make him think that he still has a lot to learn, understand? Berkeley nodded understandingly. In short, you must keep him. Wait for the Supreme Mage to come back. Berkeley thought for a night about the ostentatious teaching program. In the end, there is only one skill, and that is to teach indiscriminately. But if Jong Yangshan is screwed out and taught indiscriminately, this is obviously a little wrong, so, this class of apprentices, Berkeley have all taught indiscriminately. Although this was known by senior brother Mordo, he would definitely be punished. But the problem is, no way, for an extremely talented teenager. Berkeley can only do that. Otherwise, if he leaves, what a loss it will be for Kamar Taj against Dormammu. Besides, it's only 6 days. It is not too late to wait for the Supreme Mage to return and let senior brother Cassius teach them after they have decided. Thinking of this, Berkeley nodded silently. As if he had made up his mind, he straightened his clothes and rushed to the training ground. By the time they arrived at the training ground, almost all the apprentices had already arrived. Jong Yong is no exception. Berkeley silently said, "I'm sorry," to all the apprentices. Then he looked at Jong Yong. Taking a deep breath, Berkeley walked in front of Jong Yong with a cold face. "Do you know why I let you go back to sleep yesterday?" As soon as the words fell, Jong Yong hurriedly saluted Berkeley, and then said gratefully, "Junior brother understands, I really appreciate senior brother Berkeley's good intentions." Berkeley was stunned. Berkeley asked Jong Yong this question, originally to suppress Jong Yong. After all, Berkeley felt that Jong Yong would definitely say that he didn't know. But unexpectedly, Jong Yong looked very grateful. This left Berkeley a little confused. Without waiting for Berkeley to ask Xie anything, Jong Yong said a little excitedly, "Senior brother, I finally understand that you said that the key to practicing magic is to realize more. Yesterday you asked me to go back and rest. When I was thinking about it on the bed with my eyes closed, I suddenly had a light in my mind, and when I woke up this morning, I suddenly realized how to open the portal. Kamar Taj's magic is really wonderful and mysterious. Senior brother just threw a magic light. I didn't expect that there was such a big connotation in it. When I thought about it for the past 2 days, I found that magic light is the basis of everything, and it is really amazing that it can be connected to any item with a thread." Jong Yang's tone was a little excited when he spoke. Although he looked esoteric and praised Kamar Taj's magic, Berkeley always felt that he was pretending. "Why are you drawing when you learn magic? Draw a pattern with a line and then you can cast it. What magic would you have to learn if it was so easy? That's why you have a brain that has opened the light. In other words, if it is someone else, I am afraid that I will not even be able to enter the magic introduction with this method. It's so infuriating," Berkeley roared in his heart. Although Jong Yang's words are infuriating, the problem is that this is not the point. The point is that Berkeley seems to have heard Jong Yong just said that he realized how to open the Xuansong gate. "Are you serious?" Berkeley looked at Jong Yong and asked very seriously. What to do? Berkeley was a little panicked. Jong Yong nodded, his expression extremely serious. "Hiss. What a crime. I was born to be human, I'm sorry." Berk pressed his temple with his hand. "Please, stop realizing. I realize that Kamar Taj may not be able to tolerate you." Jong Yong looked at Berk with his hand holding his temple with a headache, and he was a little stunned for a while. Since yesterday, Jong Yong found that senior brother Berkeley either shook his head or sighed to himself. This made Jong Yong a little confused. The more than 300 sharp weapon magic and portal magic he realized before have been used by Doctor Strange in the movie, and it stands to reason that there should be no problem with his understanding. Why did senior brother Berkeley keep shaking his head? "Senior brother Berkeley, have you been having a bit of a migraine lately?" Jong Yong couldn't help but ask straight. "Berkeley, what migraine? If you don't have a headache, why do you keep shaking your head and sighing, and pressing your temples?" Jong Yong asked bluntly. "Am I not so savvy that you have a headache?" "I thought so, but Berkeley couldn't say that. I shake my head and sigh because your problem is big." His words made Jong Yong puzzled again. "Jong Yong, I know, you really want to learn magic. I also know that you are very hard, but practicing magic, in the refinement, not much." Looking at Jong Yong frowning slightly, looking incomprehensible, Berkeley began his own flickering seriously. "I have to admit that you have a lot of ideas, and your understanding is still barely passable. Compared to this batch of apprentices, you are a good seedling, but your problem is that you have too many ideas and lost focus. At Kamar Taj, it's a taboo. There are many types of magic: melee magic, ranged magic, auxiliary magic, attack magic, defensive magic, and so on. And there are many types of magic. You said you can't learn all magic, of course. But the question is, where is your focus? What is your major? Auxiliary, defensive, or attacking?" Berkeley said it sincerely. Indeed, there is some truth in it. After all, Jong Yong has realized a lot of magic recently, but Jong Yong also found that although there are many, they basically write basic magic. According to the impressions and what he saw and heard in Kamar Taj. When it comes to Ji Yuyi, it is natural to think of mirror space magic. Ji Yuyi's mirror space magic has been cultivated to the point of pure fire. Generally speaking, as soon as Fengu opened the mirror space, he almost never saw anyone who could get out of the mirror space. Let's talk about the abilities of Doctor Strange and those Kamar Taj mages. The magic practiced by Kamar Taj is known as the secret law. It can also be called melee magic. Generally, there are few bells and whistles, and melee combat is the mainstay. Space teleportation magic is supplemented. Many people seem to think that Kamar Taj's magic does not look cool. But the problem is, the practicality is high. It's like turning on ranged magic on you if an enemy is on you. If you teleport directly to him with a portal, then a magic sword goes straight to the heart. Even if the enemy's magic looks fancy, it is useless. So, here comes the most critical question. Can your magic sword be inserted directly and accurately into the heart of the enemy? This is what Jong Yong understood in Berkeley's words. Just to the point, magic attacks should be fast, accurate, and ruthless, hitting the enemy's lifeline. To be more precise, you need to be proficient in a magical ability. Whether it's support magic, attack magic, or other categories, in short, there are no more essences. Senior brother Berkeley. I understand. Jong Yong suddenly realized. I see. Berkeley nodded profoundly. Although Berkeley did not understand at all what Jong Yong understood in his flickering pretentious quote. However, it still has to be done. What should be asked, still has to be asked. So, now you come and tell me what you understand. Berkeley asked seriously to Jong Yong. Seriously, because Berkeley really wants to know. Senior brother means that learning magic is not much in the fine, you must first master one magic, play the most role, and then master the other, right? Jong Yong said seriously. Boy, people are really incomparable. I talk nonsense, and he can understand the truth. Berkeley wanted to cry without tears, and nodded with satisfaction on the surface. Children can be taught. After saying that, he continued, a truly powerful magician must have his own understanding of everything in the world. The origin of magic comes from nature. In nature, find the true meaning of magic. Do not blindly greedy for more. Wine is good, but not greedy for cups. So, let go of the bells and whistles. Although you have learned more than 300 kinds of sharp weapon magic and portals, your ability has not reached the point where you can control all of them to the point of pure blue. I draw magic rays so that you can learn magic rays. Do you think that the power of magic light will be worse than those magic weapons? Berkeley said, raised his hand to draw a magic light, then held it in his hand, walked to a tree, and slashed across the sky. An invisible force slid. The leaves of the big tree were blown and there was a clanging sound. Jing. Extreme quiet. Jong Yong, including the eyes of all the apprentices present, looked at Berkeley. Now, the right hand holds a magic light, as if it were a static picture. Just when everyone was confused, they only listened to the sound of bang. The tree opposite Berkeley was cut off. That's awesome. Seeing this, Avery couldn't help but exclaim. Senior brother is so powerful. How exactly is this done? So the magic light is so powerful. The apprentice on the side couldn't help but exclaim. Berkeley slowly put away the magic light, put his hands behind him, looked at Jong Yong and all the apprentices, and said, I hope you will let go of all the bells and whistles, return to the origin of magic, and surpass yourself. Magic can be a sharp weapon or a shield, and the most important thing is how you use it. Berkeley said and left without looking back. There are 3 days left. When he woke up, Berkeley counted the time on his fingers, grateful for it. As usual, Berkeley went to the library to find Wong to report. It's different from usual. This time, Wong wasn't listening to Beyoncé. Instead, he sat in front of the library, seemingly waiting for Berkeley to come. Upon seeing Berkeley, Wong quickly asked, yesterday, what happened? Although just heard, but Berkeley's flamboyance is terrible. Such a gifted seedling, don't be taught away by Berkeley. Wong only hated himself for managing the library and not being able to see it with his own eyes. Archmage, yesterday, that guy, slept and realized the magic to open the portal. Berkeley sighed and reported truthfully. You mean, he can open the portal now? Wong was a little surprised. Berkeley nodded. You didn't teach them, he realized it himself. Wong asked again. Berkeley nodded helplessly. It seems that this Jong Yong is really a rare talent. Wong sighed. Although portals are basic magic, they are much easier to learn than scarlet chains. But the problem is, this Jong Yong realized it without anyone teaching him. It's scary. Wong shook his head. This time, he didn't read well. If such a talent is accepted as a believer by Dormammu, it is simply terrible. You have to drag Jong Yong as much as possible, the Supreme Mage will be back in 3 days. Wong said seriously. Berkeley nodded his head like pounding garlic, and said confidently, "Don't worry, I will definitely be able to hold back. I've already figured out how to do it, and I plan to teach them all during the Supreme Mage's return." Hearing Berkeley say the 2 words of disorderly teaching, Wong couldn't help frowning, and said righteously, "Disorderly teaching? What is Kamar Taj, and you would even think of such a bad idea?" Berkeley quickly waved his hand and said, "No, the Archmage misunderstood. What I said about chaotic teaching is not to call them actual mages, but only to teach them basic theories. Although this is a little unfair to the other apprentices, in order to keep Jong Yong, there is only this way. Moreover, there are only 3 days left, and when the Supreme Mage and Senior Brother come back, it is not too late to teach them well. After all, practicing magic has never been able to come out overnight. And Berkeley's so-called promiscuity, it's not to teach people indiscriminately, but it's not practical, so I specifically talk about some big principles for them to understand. In this way, even if the ostentatious understanding is high, no one taught it by hand, presumably, it would take 3 or 5 days to realize it." When he came to his senses, the Supreme Mage returned. At that time, for Jong Yong, presumably the Supreme Mage will naturally have arrangements. Understanding what Berkeley meant, Wong nodded. "That's it, this idea, I think it's good." Berkeley breathed a sigh of relief. I muttered with some dissatisfaction in my heart. I don't know the bad idea I just said. By the way, what did you teach Jong Yong and those apprentices yesterday? Berkeley was thinking when Wong suddenly asked. Berkeley hurriedly said, "I told them to focus on a magical skill, and there is not much magic in the fine." Although this statement was summed up by Jong Yong himself. But probably, Berkeley taught this yesterday. Seeing that Wong didn't say anything, Berkeley continued, "I asked them to practice the most basic magic rays yesterday, and let them focus on practicing magic rays." Wong was stunned. Magic light? Magic light, isn't that the most basic magic? This is the one for beginners. Isn't Jong Yong already able to magic light? Wong was a little confused. "I mean let them turn magical rays into lethal weapons." Berkeley said seriously, "It's like cutting a tree with magical light. Chop down trees with magic rays." Wong was stunned. Theoretically, it's not impossible, but it has to be a mage with a certain amount of magical energy to do it. And practicing magic is, to be precise, practicing magical energy. But, since Jong Yong can learn the Scarlet Chain magic, cutting down trees with magic rays is still not difficult. Is it hard? Wong looked at Berkeley and asked, puzzled. "It's really not that difficult, Archmage." Berkeley took a deep breath and said, "However, this can limit the savvy of the open. We can slowly increase the difficulty, but what remains unchanged is that he can only practice magical rays." Wong said seriously, "Then what are you going to let them contact to cut?" Berkeley frowned, thought for a while, and said, "Archmage, I want to apply to take them to the Himalayas." To the Himalayas? Wong was stunned again. "Yes." Berkeley nodded. "Okay, then you take them." Although he didn't know what Berkeley wanted to do, Wong approved. After all, it turned out that Cassius also often took his apprentices to the Himalayas to practice. Berkeley saluted and retreated. Silently said in my heart, "Just get through these 3 days." After reporting to Wong, Berkeley continued to put on that inscrutable appearance and walked towards the training ground. As usual, the apprentices stood neatly on the training ground in the morning. Berkeley scanned the apprentices, already memorizing the names of each apprentice in his mind. After confirming that all the apprentices had arrived, Berkeley glanced at the refreshed arrogance and finally set his eyes on Ailey. A girl of 17 or 8 years old. Although she didn't like to smile very much, she looked cold to everyone, and once boasted to Berkeley that she would definitely be the future Supreme Mage. However, I have to say that Avery is still very talented as a girl. If it weren't for the fact that there was a pervert in this session, Avery's talent would definitely be the focus of cultivation. Of course, although Berkeley ignored Avery before, after Avery helped her solve the siege yesterday, Berkeley paid a little attention to Avery a little. Moreover, he also thought of a way to make Jong Yong not think that he was very strong. Berkeley straightened his chest slightly, and after a long silence, he finally spoke. you have been coming to Kamar Taj for 3 days, how many students can draw magic rays in these 3 days? Of the dozen apprentices present, only 4 silently raised their hands, including Jong Yong. Berkeley's brows frowned slightly, so he sighed with difficulty. You guys are really the worst class one have ever led. Like the previous apprentices, in 3 days, you can basically practice close combat. The clouds and the water pretended to be forced. Berkeley was still a little stunned when he said this. After all, their group of apprentices had studied for a month before they began to teach melee magic. Want to practice melee after learning magic for 3 days? What is magic? Can you learn it by just finding a random person on the street? However, there is no way. In order to retain the publicity, Berkeley can only do this. But Kamar Taj is a magical mecca in the end. Getting into Kamar Taj is not an easy affair either. Therefore, Berkeley did not question the apprenticeship when he said this. Just focused on their class, the worst apprentices. For a while, the atmosphere was a little dignified, and most of the apprentices lowered their heads one after another, and their faces were full of loss. This made Jong Yong not only feel a little emotional. In fact, when Jong Yong first entered Kamar Taj, he really thought that learning magic was hard. It's not a decade to start. After all, this kind of ethereal thing similar to a fantasy cultivator, if because he is now in the Marvel world, he does not believe that someone can do magic at all. However, after his sincere contact, he found that it was not very difficult to learn magic. Originally, seeing that most of the apprentices who came in with him had not even entered the door now, Jong Yong was a little complacent in his heart. But listening to Berkeley's words, Jong Yong understood a little for a while. It's not that I'm too talented. There are people who are stronger than their own talents. There must be a lot of great characters and powerful magic in Kamar Taj. Jong Yong was thinking in his heart. Suddenly, I heard senior brother Berkeley speak again. Now in my opinion, Avery is the strongest. If he is open, the ability is not bad, but there are too many ideas and no center of gravity. Berkeley said in a serious manner. He originally wanted to say that Avery was the most talented and capable, but the problem was, that's too fake. So, Berkeley synthesized and improved Avery's talent. Talent is a very suspenseful concept. Anyway, it is impossible for these apprentices to really figure out whose talent is stronger and who is stronger. In short, it is necessary to set up a competitor for Jong Yong, just right. And this competitor cannot be too powerful, nor too weak. Let Jong Yong have a sense of competition. It would be better if they were apprentices in the same group. With this thought, Berkeley walked towards Avery. After walking in front of Avery, Berkeley said seriously, Avery, you must work hard and strive to become a trainee mage in the Kamar Taj assessment. Avery looked stunned. Although saying this sentence made Avery feel a pang of joy in his heart, the question was, isn't the flamboyant talent the best? Even if he realized a lot of bells and whistles. But the problem is, she still hasn't realized those magics. However, looking at Berkeley's affirmative gaze, Avery's doubts instantly dissipated. Avery said seriously, yes. Brother Berkeley, I will definitely work harder. She is the one who wants to become the supreme mage. How can you not have this little confidence? Since her talent is the strongest, as long as she works hard, in time, she will definitely be able to surpass Jong Yong. Avery thought to himself, turning his head to look at Jong Yong. And at this moment, Jong Yong seemed to be looking at her. The two looked at each other. Avery actually had a heart beating faster for a moment. She quickly withdrew her gaze and lowered her head. At the same time, Berkeley has come to the front of the ostentatious. Hey, Berkeley stood in front of Jong Yong and sighed 3 times in a row. The subtext of sighing these 3 breaths is, you guy, why is your understanding so perverted? Don't realize it again. Please, let me carry these 3 days, just wait for the supreme mage to come back. However, Jong Yong did not know Berkeley's subtext. Jong Yong thought that senior brother Berkeley was dissatisfied with his too many ideas, so he quickly said, Senior brother Berkeley, don't worry, I will definitely practice every magic step by step to the extreme. Jong Yong said seriously. This moved Berkeley a little. Boy, there is progress. It seems that his teaching plan for Jong Yong has finally achieved some results, so that these 3 days should be able to survive safely. Berkeley shook his head, grateful for it. At this moment, he really wanted to bow to Jong Yong. Thank you Jong Yong for sparing the entire Kamar Taj mage. Otherwise, according to the Jong Yong so understanding, then realize. All of Kamar Taj's mage mentality may be about to collapse. Others may have worked hard for decades to learn a magic, but he can learn it all in one night. Don't play anymore. Berkeley sighed and said to Jong Yong. Very good, I hope you don't live up to my hard work for you, senior brother. What a painstaking effort. Every day I think about how to keep you in Kamar Taj, for you alone, breaking the rules of Kamar Taj. It's not easy for me either. However, Berkeley did not know that Jong Yong seemed to have misunderstood what he said. Seeing how Berkeley seemed to be very attached to himself, Jong Yong hurriedly said, yes. Junior brother understands. When the words fell, Jong Yong glanced at Berkeley gratefully. I thought, I must work harder than before. You have to become the Archmage of Kamar Taj first. Chapter 11. Berkeley breathed a sigh of relief when he received an affirmative answer. He looked at all the apprentices on the training ground, and did not forget to encourage them. However, don't be discouraged, learn magic. This is the case, as long as you work hard, you will definitely achieve great things in the future. Your primary purpose now is to hurry up your practice, become a trainee mage, and then go out to practice. Kamar Taj is just the starting point for you, and what you can get to and who you will become. By what you have heard in the outside world, Berkeley is serious about this. The so-called practice. It's not just about cultivation, but more importantly, it's about doing. As the name suggests, line means to go to the outside world and see more. Several times, he has reached the realm of Supreme Mage Ji, and he often goes out to wander in the clouds. The so-called cloud tour is not to go out to play, but to better contact nature and other magical elements, so as to improve the ability of cultivators. Originally, Berkeley was also going out to practice. But because of the turmoil in New York, Berkeley's practice was delayed. It is estimated that after waiting for a while, Berkeley will also have to go out to practice. I hope that he will not go out to practice with Jong Yong, otherwise he will fool Jong Yong, won't all be exposed. Berkeley prayed silently. As soon as the words fell, he coughed lightly twice to hide his embarrassment. Okay, there is an introductory course on magic, you have been practicing for 3 days. However, so far, only 4 practitioners have learned. No, continue to practice introductory magic today. As for those who have already learned, I will take you to your first practice. Berkeley looked at Jong Yong and continued, by the way, didn't you say that you have already realized the portal magic? Suddenly being named, Jong Yong eased up for a while, and quickly nodded. Berkeley replied flatly, raising his eyebrows, then you try, open the Sungmin to the top of Mount Everest. Mount Everest. Jong Yong looked stunned, looking at the monk's robe he was wearing, and asked with some hesitation, Senior brother Berkeley, are you going to take us to Mount Everest to practice? Berkeley nodded. This one nodded, shocked, and Avery on the side was a little bad. Although Jong Yong has just come to Kamar Taj, he also knows what a place Mount Everest is. The lowest temperature at the summit is -30 or 40 degrees Celsius all year round. Due to the extremely cold climate, it is also known as the third pole of the world. As you can imagine, the place shouldn't be so cool. Jong Yong glanced at the monk's robe on his body. This costume is the uniform clothing of Kamar Taj, which is not thin or thick. It is not enough to take advantage of the cold, and it is impossible to protect against the cold. Wearing this to the summit of Mount Everest, you must not die cold. Jong Yong thought to himself, and said to Berkeley, Senior brother Berkeley, before we leave, do you have any other clothes? Berkeley's face sank. Do you think I'm taking you on a tour? I'm taking you to practice. As a mage, if you can't even resist this bit of cold, then how can you become a qualified mage? Berkeley said seriously. It does make some sense. Yes, brother, Jong Yong said, raising his hand and drawing a circle out of thin air. On the opposite side of the circle is Mount Everest. Berkeley's heart trembled, and he thought uncontrollably. I'll go. I really learned about portals. Did this Jong Yong grow up eating magic? Why did he learn magic so quickly? And so on. Just when Berkeley was angry in his heart, suddenly, Berkeley discovered something. On the hands of Jong Yong, there is no suspension ring. The suspension ring is one of the magic weapons of Kamar Taj and is also the most commonly used magic weapon. Its role is to help the mage better condense energy, so as to release magic. This is a must-have for newbies. At least, when you can play well with your own energy, the suspense is a must. Otherwise, many things can distract you and make it impossible to perform your magic well. At least for many mages. You can't cast magic without a suspense. At least the level of an archmage, that is, the king, can cast magic without using the suspense. But Jong Yong, an apprentice who had just learned magic for 3 days, could cast magic without a suspense. This Nima is a freak. Is his mental power so strong? Can you put aside all distractions anytime, anywhere, and have no distractions? Berkeley was shocked. This guy may not be too strong, right? Hiss. Horrible. It seems that this guy, in the future, will definitely be a strong person who will shock the entire mage world. Senior brother Berkeley is already well. Just as Berkeley was thinking, Jong Yong hurriedly said. Berkeley then slowed down. Seeing that no one seemed to have discovered this problem, Berkeley did not mention it, but secretly noted that when the time came, he must report this matter to Wong. Thinking about it, Berkeley led Jong Yong, Avery and 2 other mages to the summit of Mount Everest. When he was an apprentice, Cassius would often take Berkeley and his group to Mount Everest for training. So Berkeley is used to the extremely cold temperatures of Mount Everest. But Jong Yong and Avery and the group were obviously not used to it. Look at the snowy peaks and howling winds. The other 2 mages hugged their weak bodies, curled up, shivering with cold. Although Jong Yong was not like this, he couldn't help but shiver coldly, rubbed his arms with his hands to keep warm. Only Avery looked at Berkeley's unmoved appearance and gritted his teeth and resisted. She stood straight, but the cold lips that she couldn't control trembling slightly betrayed her. Looking at the 4 of them like this, Berkeley put his hands behind his back and said in a deep voice, "You know, why do you feel cold?" The 4 shook their heads. "That's because your own energy is not enough," Berkeley said, looking up and walking in the snow of Mount Everest. As he walked, he continued, "The most important thing in practicing magic is to feel the energy from nature, and then gather these energies, so now all you need to do is feel the cold and have the energy to resist the cold. Of course, if there are cultivators who can't hold on, they can leave first," Berkeley said, casually drawing a Xuansong door. In fact, Kamar Taj didn't feel the cold. Cassius' purpose in bringing them to Mount Everest was to bring them to practice passing the Pine Gate. However, this also came after they had been exposed to magic for a month. But now, because of the publicity, the practice of Mount Everest, Berkeley is ahead. Of course, it is unlikely that Jong Yong will be taught to draw portals now, because Jong Yong already will. Moreover, it is still on the basis of not wearing a suspense. What a pervert. Therefore, Berkeley brought Jong Yang's group here, saying that it was to let them withstand the cold. In fact, it was to increase the difficulty of Jong Yang's training. In fact, Berkeley can withstand the cold because of a certain magical energy. When a certain amount of magical energy is gathered in the body, it converts its own magical energy into internal temperature, thereby increasing the internal temperature and resisting cold. This operation extremely consumes its own magical energy. The average introductory mage can't do this. And with Berkeley's current ability, it can last for an hour at most. After all, its own magical energy is something that cannot be taught by teaching. Rather, it requires cumulative practice. Although Jong Yong can comprehend a variety of magic spells, he can also learn Scarlet Chain magic. But the problem is, the Crimson Chain is aided by the power of the Crimson Universe and sharp weapon magic. Most of them have basic magical energy, which can be learned by knowing spells. It doesn't take much magic energy to consume. Simply put, it's like a person who goes to learn swordsmanship. Look at the moves once. As long as you are not a fool, you can learn it after practicing several times. But to comprehend the sword intent and kill with the sword intent, it is not such a simple thing. That's the truth. The same applies here at Kamar Taj. But if you have a little magical talent, as long as you learn the spell with the help of magic weapons and practice it a few more times, those basic magic masteries are just a matter of time. But, want to use magical energy. This is something that needs to be cumulative. Therefore, Berkeley does not believe that Jong Yong can have the energy to withstand the cold in a short period of time. Maximum, 10 minutes. Jong Yong and his group will definitely leave and return to Kamar Taj. It's so easy to practice magic. Berkeley felt a little proud. Of course, this is also, Wong reminded him, and only then came up with this method. Looking at Jong Yong, Avery and the other mages carrying the cold, Berkeley still lingered among the four of them unmoved. Within 3 minutes, someone shook their heads. Senior brother Berkeley, no, it's too cold. A middle-aged apprentice shook his head and said with a trembling voice. Another younger apprentice also hurriedly said, Master, senior brother, can't bear it. Go back, Berkeley said regretfully and waved his hand. The 2 apprentices fled. Now, only Jong Yong and Avery are left. Berkeley looked at the appearance of Jong Yong and Avery carrying hard, not panicked or busy. 10 minutes passed. Neither of the 2 let go. Berkeley looked stunned, and thought in his heart. 30 minutes at most, and they'll definitely let go. 30 minutes passed. The 2 were still standing on Mount Everest, on the peak, and no one planned to retreat. Berkeley, on the other hand, consumes too much magical energy. At this time, he felt a chill. He looked at Avery. Avery could obviously see the cold, but he was still resisting, and it seemed that he should be resisting soon. Then turned his head to look at Jong Yong. Boy. This guy's expression, why is it more and more wrong the more you look at it? Why does it seem to be getting more and more relaxed? Another 10 minutes passed. They had been standing on Mount Everest for more than 50 minutes, and Berkeley felt as if he couldn't carry it anymore. The body feels colder and colder. However, the flamboyant expression seemed to be getting more and more relaxed. This guy, could it be that you really have resisted the cold? Berkeley thought to himself. At this moment, Jong Yong suddenly spoke. Senior brother Berkeley, I feel, it seems, that it is not cold. Jong Yong said very seriously. The words fell, without waiting for Berkeley to speak, and then asked, have I finished training? Rumble. Berkeley's words were like a thunder in the ground, and Berkeley's scalp was numb. No way, no way. Jong Yong actually took only 40 minutes to withstand the cold. The Berkeley man was stupid, and before he could speak, he heard Jong Yong say excitedly, Senior brother, what you said is really good. I now feel that there is an energy swimming in my body, and this energy has helped me resist the cold very well. The corners of Berkeley's mouth twitched. Jong Yong can't really have his magic energy gathered in his body. Berkeley said to Jong Yong with some hesitation, you try to use the abilities in your body, just like I showed you yesterday. Do you remember? Just yesterday, I drew a magic light, and when I swung it, there was a magical aura. That's magical energy. Berkeley said seriously. Although he didn't want to admit it, Berkeley also wanted to see how much magical energy Jong Yong had in his body. Jong Yong nodded, raised his hand to draw a magic light, and held it in his hand. He felt an energy swimming in his body, felt the fierce wind around him, felt everything in nature, and then shook it hard. Rumble. A loud bang. The fierce wind tore and flew away with the magic light in Jong Yang's hand. Jong Yang's wave of his hand shook the entire Mount Everest. Berkeley's eyes widened, feeling the trembling beneath his feet. If he was not mistaken, there was a crack that began to crack from where Jong Yong waved his hand, spreading towards the distance. And then, the mountain shook. Cracks, the more cracked, the bigger they are. The entire summit of Mount Everest was actually cut in half by Jong Yong. Jong Yong, you became a trainee mage, you became a teacher. Berkeley said the words almost tremblingly. He didn't understand at all. Why did he bring Jong Yong to Mount Everest? Is he looking for abuse? He just casually talked about it and let them practice gathering magical energy. This thing can't gather for a year and a half. How can this Yang Shen spend 50 minutes on Mount Everest and cut the top of the mountain in half? Am I special? Senior brother, I was like, too hard, accidentally chopped the summit of Mount Everest in half. Although Jong Yong was a little happy in his heart. However, he also seems to realize that he has run into trouble. A little embarrassed to Berkeley said. However, Jong Yong did not know. In Berkeley's view, Jong Yong is pretending, and it's still invisible pretense. The deadliest. What is carelessness? Am I invisible? If you cut down this light, 8 kilometers of Mount Everest, I am afraid that there are only 4 kilometers left. Jong Yong, how exactly did you do it? At this moment, Berkeley didn't want to hide it anymore. I don't want to let Jong Yong feel that he can't do it anymore. This can't be concealed at all. God, can a person cut the summit of Mount Everest in half? A fool knows that this is not something that an apprentice can do. Can he be a fool? Bah, to say that he is a genius is insulting him. Geniuses are not worthy of him at all. He's a god. God-like existence in the wizarding world. Now let Berkeley say that the flamboyance is mediocre. Can't say ostentatious. Killing Berkeley is beyond words. Now, Berkeley just wants to know how Jong Yong did it. After listening to senior brother's words yesterday, I went back and thought about it seriously for a night, and then I kept thinking about how to maximize the power of magic light. Then when I was just standing on Mount Everest, I felt as if I had figured it out. Jong Yong said extremely seriously. When the words fell, he did not forget to thank Berkeley. What senior brother said is really not wrong. Practicing a kind of magic to the realm of pure fire, it is really right. Listening to Jong Yang's words, Berkeley just wanted to slap himself twice at the moment. He originally thought that letting Jong Yong practice only one type of magic could greatly suppress Jong Yang's understanding of other magic. But he seemed to have overlooked a point. What a terrible thing it would be to practice a magic to the extreme. A magic light. Can you cut the summit of Mount Everest in half? What a powerful magical energy it takes to do this. Jong Yong just thinks. Relying on enlightenment, can you realize this? No, how do you let the mage of Kamar Taj live? Others practice like this year after year, day after day. You just think. Are you full of magical talent? Please, be a person. At the moment, Berkeley wanted to cry without tears. God knows how desperate he was, shook his head, and Berkeley said to Jong Yong and Avery, let's go. With that, Berkeley walked through the portal and arrived at Kamar Taj. Jong Yong and Avery followed. The three entered the training ground. The apprentices were a little confused. What do they think? Senior brother Berkeley is a little strange. Why do you look a little unhappy? And Avery too. Why did she keep her mouth open, as if she had just seen something that shocked her? But, why does Jong Yong look so happy? Just when the apprentices were wondering. Senior brother Berkeley spoke. First of all, let's congratulate Jong Yong, he has successfully become a trainee mage, and then, today's training is over. Berkeley said weakly. Apprentices. What the heck? After going to Mount Everest to practice, Jong Yong didn't even need to take the exam, and he became a trainee mage. For a while, all the apprentices brushed their eyes and looked at Jong Yong. At this moment, Jong Yong couldn't suppress a smile on his face and said to Berkeley, thank you, senior brother. Berkeley nodded and said, tomorrow, you go directly to the library to report, the Archmage King will start your magic. Wow, there was an uproar. At this time, the apprentices looked at Jong Yang's gaze, only infinite envy and jealousy. Archmage teaching, what the hell must be learning about very powerful high-level magic, right? However, although Berkeley admitted that Jong Yong was indeed powerful, Berkeley still did not forget to remind Jong Yong. Jong Yong, Wong is an archmage, although you just exerted the power of magic light very well, the archmage of Kamar Taj is definitely not a waste. As soon as the words fell, Berkeley took heavy steps, and left under the doubtful eyes of everyone. Jong Yong was happy in his heart. But he also knew that his novice village was in Kamar Taj. This kind of power is still a lot worse in the face of those high-level magics. Jong Yong knew that he had a lot to learn. Go back and continue studying magic. Jong Yong said and walked towards the dormitory. Wait for Berkeley and Jong Yong to leave. All the apprentices set their sights on Avery. Eli, what happened? Yes, Avery, are you telling us about it? For a while, the apprentices all gathered around, as if they wanted to ask what was going on. However, Avery only opened his eyes wide, looking incredulous in disbelief. This made Barlow in the crowd a little unhappy. Aren't you going to be a supreme mage? Senior brother Berkeley also said that you have the strongest talent. Why did Jong Yong become a trainee mage, but you didn't? Barlow said to Avery sneeringly. In the past, Avery would have responded coldly, but this time, Avery did not. She just shook her head and muttered unconsciously in her mouth, he is too strong, too strong. New York, SHIELD, Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Division. The purpose of its existence is to deal with various abnormal events, monitor, study, subdue or destroy. It seems that I have a new mission again. Every time she entered Nick Fury's office, Black Widow knew nothing good would happen. Of course, it's not a bad thing for her who is idle and flustered. Compared to the dark memories of the Red House in World War II, S.H.I.E.L.D. is more humane. Nick Fury is also not bad for her. There is indeed trouble. Looking at the Black Widow who walked in, Nick Fury frowned and said with a complicated expression. Such Nick Fury gave Black Widow a very bad premonition. After all, as the king of agents, Nick Fury rarely has such an expression as now, and rarely says the word, trouble. In general, trouble equals something big. Putting away the charm of her body, Black Widow became a little more serious. Say, what trouble? Hope, don't be too tricky. Nick Fury took out a piece of information from the drawer and put it in front of Black Widow. Mount Everest is less than half of usual, and there have been landslides, serious avalanches, landslides, and natural disasters such as mountain falls. However, according to the drone detection we sent, the formation of this phenomenon does not seem to be caused by natural factors. Black Widow's face was stunned. What's the thing? Mount Everest is half dwarf. Or is it caused by unnatural factors? So what does that mean? You don't always suspect that Mount Everest is half less man-made, right? Black Widow raised her eyebrows and said incredulously. According to the results taken by the drone, it is not excluded. Moreover, when Mount Everest was abnormal, many residents felt a force under the mountain. I heard that it is domineering and strong. Nick Fury said seriously. Listening to the tone, it doesn't look like a joke. This appalling disappearance forced Black Widow to pay attention to what Nick Fury said. Half convinced, Black Widow opened the information. It's good if you don't look at it, and the Black Widow is stunned when she sees it. Is this special, artificial? Who can cut Mount Everest in half? This girl was definitely done by a powerful person. Otherwise, it's a mutant, or an Omega-level mutant. This ability, too special, perverted, right? Nick, you won't let me deal with the people who cut Mount Everest, will you? Black Widow closed the information hesitantly and asked tentatively. Seriously, this kind of bad idea, Nick Fury can't think of it. After all, if Nick Fury finds Black Widow, 9 times out of 10, it will be murder. I never do stupid things that I'm not sure about. Nick Fury shrugged. I'm just asking you to take people to investigate near the Himalayas, and to be honest, I think there should be strong superpowers near the Himalayas. Nick Fury's eyes narrowed slightly. There seems to be some kind of calculation in my heart. Okay, ideographic period. Simple, crisp. What she could. Black Widow did not hesitate in the slightest. It's just an investigation, it's not too difficult. It's just that. What about the cosmic cube? Black Widow couldn't help but ask. Recently, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been studying the cosmic Rubik's Cube, and Black Widow was originally investigating the cosmic Rubik's Cube anomaly, and the unknown force from the universe is really domineering and terrifying. In particular, it is particularly outrageous that the cosmic cube has attracted 2 guys who claim to be gods. One with a hammer said he was Thor. Another guy with a deer antler helmet says that he is some future king of Asgard, father of the gods. It looks like 2 stupid lacks no matter how you look at it. Thinking of this, Black Widow couldn't help sighing. Leave it to the American team to deal with, you go to the vicinity of the Himalayas to investigate for the time being. The impact of Mount Everest is too great, and the World Security Council is putting pressure on me. Nick Fury pressed his temple. There have been a lot of troubles lately. Okay, ideographic period. Black Widow said, took the information, and left Nick Fury's office with a crisp high heel. As soon as Black Widow left, Nick Fury picked up the phone on the table and dialed it. Soon, the other end of the line was connected. Agent Hill, how is Plan B going? As soon as the phone was connected, Nick Fury asked in a deep voice. Everything is normal, according to the original plan. Agent Hill reported truthfully. You've got to speed up, Hill. Over there in the Himalayas, there's a problem. Nick Fury seemed a little dissatisfied with the original plan, and his tone was more serious. This made Hill feel a certain amount of pressure, but, anyway, Nick Fury was her superior. Hill couldn't answer anything other than, yes. However, Hill was obviously a little skeptical in his heart. Sir, use the cosmic cube to create weapons of destruction. If we can't control it, things will get very bad, and the Earth is likely to suffer. Although it is Hill's questioning, it is also a reminder. It's just that this point, Nick Fury also thought. And, for Hill's reminder, Nick Fury was a little impatient, even dissatisfied. Agent Hill, you just need to speed up the completion of the plan, and you don't need to worry about other things. Earth, there must be some means of self-preservation. Moreover, on the side of the Himalayas, there are strong superpowers, and we don't know whether they are friends or foes. Of course, I hope it's a friend, but the problem is that if it's a friend, the ability is too strong, and it's also a kind of trouble, and we ordinary people must have a way to restrain them. Nick Fury said, his gaze a little fierce. He seemed to be thinking something, and he seemed to be calculating something. Night, Kamar Taj. Berkeley sat alone on the training ground and looked up at the sky. The night is deep, moonless and windless. In the space, only a sigh remained. Hey, 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 3 sighs. Berkeley shook his head repeatedly, and suddenly, a figure hurried in the dark night. Berkeley, the caller asked tentatively. Berkeley reacted to this, and when the man approached, Berkeley saw clearly that the person was the king. Archmage. Berkeley shouted weakly, saluted, and did not get up. Although it is a little disrespectful, Berkeley can't care about it. Wong frowned, sensing this subtle change in Berkeley. But he didn't take these so-called red tape to heart, but just asked Berkeley a little anxiously, "Are you and the apprentices all right?" Berkeley raised his head and looked at Wong with empty eyes and said, "Ah." Wang's brows couldn't help but furrow a little more, and said, "Something happened on Mount Everest today, and after hearing that a powerful magical aura was revealed, Mount Everest was cut by 1/2. Mount Everest is very close to Kamar Taj. This is no small matter. I suspect that it may be Dormammu's disciples who are acting demons near us, and I guess the Supreme Mage should also know about this. Didn't you ask me this morning to let the apprentices go to the Himalayas to practice? I'm afraid something might have happened to you. Come to you and ask, by the way, to see if you know who did this." Wong Jung said, looking at his serious expression, "You can see that this matter is not trivial." As an archmage, Wang's main purpose was to guard the library. Generally speaking, it is impossible for Wong to leave the library for half a step without a particularly important matter. But this time, Wong went out of the library to find Berkeley. You can imagine how influential this is. According to Berkeley's original nature, when he heard Wong say this, he had already jumped up in a hurry. And then, Berkeley, however, was unusually calm. He waved his hand at Wong. "Give me a pause button, I'm really tired." Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Wong, Berkeley, what are you talking about? Berkeley didn't seem to hear it, and continued, "I'm sorry to be human." Wong was a little angry. Berkeley. Seeing that Wong was angry, Berkeley nodded affirmatively, "I know." Wong was stunned and hurriedly asked, "Then you met with the believers of Dormammu?" Berkeley shook his head slowly. Wong was angry. "So, what the hell are you doing?" Berkeley looked at Wong with a bitter expression and said, "Archmage, the Himalayas were cut down by Jong Yong." Question mark question mark question mark. What's the thing? How is it possible? Wong widened his eyes and said with a look of disbelief, "Jong Yong has only studied magic for 3 days, can he have such strong magical energy? Cut the Himalayas in half? No, who are you bluffing? It seems that no one has not studied magic. That magical energy, it takes decades of cultivation to achieve. Jong Yong can only get to this point after only 3 days of study, and that will not let other mages live." Wong was dissatisfied and questioned Berkeley with a, "Look like you're lying." This is really not to blame the king. Rather, no similar example can be found in theory, in what Wong has seen and heard, or even in the Book of Emperor Vision. It is difficult to convince Wong. Really, Archmage, it's not just me, the other apprentices saw it too. It's good not to mention the gap, but when the gap is mentioned, Berkeley can't help but want to cry. Forced to endure the sadness, Berkeley said to Wong with a crying voice. Seeing Berkeley so serious, Wong was stunned for a while. No way, what a fancy job. It only took 3 days to cultivate such powerful magical energy. Isn't Kamar Taj mo out of a god? Berkeley's words made Wong a little dumbfounded. This fanfare, is talent really so strong? I don't know why Wong just doesn't believe it. He looked at Berkeley and said, "Didn't you say that you want to mess with the teaching? Chaotic sect can also teach such strong magical energy. I hadn't noticed it before." The king's words were like a bayonet. One blow is fatal. It's good not to mention it, but Berkeley couldn't hold back at the mention of it, and cried to Wong Yu tearlessly. "Archmage, I don't know. I'm just messing around. I took them to the Himalayas to teach them to withstand the cold and feel the energy of nature. Who knew that after staying for 50 minutes, Jong Yong not only resisted the cold, but also gathered energy. So I asked him to try, and he used magic light to cut the summit of Mount Everest in half. The most important thing is that I found out today that when Jong Yong opened the portal, he didn't even bring a suspense ring. How powerful is this spiritual power to concentrate to this point? Berkeley looked at Wong. His face was full of 4 big words, doubting life. This made Wong start to believe what Berkeley said. But the problem is, it's not scientific. It doesn't make sense. 50 minutes to cultivate such a powerful magical energy. Can you split Mount Everest with magic light? Can I open a portal without a suspension? This thing from Berkeley, one thing after another, whether it is placed in Kamar Taj or the entire wizarding world, it is unprecedented. Anything can become a legend. This bravado, does he have anything to do with Emperor Vishen? You know, the Kamar Taj lineage, passed down from the Ancient One, is a secret method created by the Trinity God of Vishen Emperor. If Jong Yong didn't have anything to do with Emperor Vishen, Wong really didn't expect that an ordinary person's ability to learn magic was so strong. Even a talented person can't reach this point. This flamboyance is simply divine. Wong was exclaimed in his heart, only to hear Berkeley sigh. Archmage, I really can't hide it. I have already told Jong Yong, let him become a trainee mage. Starting tomorrow, he will go to your place for lessons. Berkeley looked at Wong. Not to mention 3 days. Now this situation, Berkeley can't last a minute. Who knows how far Jong Yong can practice in another minute? Archmage, I can see that our practice is measured in years, and his practice is measured in minutes. Berkeley looked up to the sky and sighed, it's not fair. Look at Berkeley like this. Wong couldn't help but giggle in his heart. Although Berkeley said it so exaggeratedly. But Jong Yong was just a newcomer who had learned the secret method for 3 days. Wong can also be regarded as the top 10 mages of Kamar Taj ranking. If this kind of newcomer is a little worried, does he still have the title of Archmage? Okay, Wong frowned. Since this is the case, let him come to the library tomorrow, and I will teach it myself. Berkeley nodded frantically. The head is nodded faster than a rattle. Thankfully, he finally got rid of the ostentatious. No more insults. So, you are sitting here today watching the sky and doubting life, just because of the publicity. Looking at Berkeley's melancholy curling on the training ground, Wong couldn't help but say with disdain, isn't it just a mage with better talent? Wouldn't it be? I think that Kamar Taj is also a magical holy land. If you are like this, don't you smash the signboard of our magical holy land. Don't panic, I'll teach him that. Berkeley looked at Wong gratefully. Thank you Archmage, but I advise Archmage that that person is really a high pervert. When the words fell, Berkeley looked up at the sky again and became depressed. Wong shook his head and sighed at Berkeley, look at your appearance. With those words, the king left. He was thinking as he walked, as if he was thinking about something. Berkeley is still sitting on the playground looking at the stars. No one noticed that on the huge playground, there was also a plain monk's robe wearing Avery who, like Berkeley, was looking up at the sky and muttering in his mouth. Isn't it my strongest talent? Why is he so strong? Can you realize profound magical energy by thinking about it? Why did I think about it all night and come up with nothing? Wong thought for a night. Sleepless nights. Whoever touched this matter, 80% couldn't sleep. It stands to reason that Kamar Taj should be happy that he received a gifted apprentice. After all, Supreme Mage Ji Yuyi had been looking for this kind of genius for centuries, in order to help the mage world cultivate a strong person who was enough to shock the multiverse level against Dormammu. But flaunting this talent may not be a little too perverted, right? Just like him. If he really taught him all the secrets of Kamar Taj, he might really be able to understand them all. Think of it this way. Wong hesitated. In fact, Wong is the administrator of the library. The magic he knew was definitely no less than Ji Yuyi. After all, Kamar Taj's library is a treasure. In it, large and small, all kinds of magic, even the dark magic books forbidden by Kamar Taj. Wong has managed the library for so many years, although he has not learned a lot of magic because of his limited talent, but in Kamar Taj, except for the Supreme Mage Ji Yuyi, no one dares to understand more magic than him. All taught to Jong Yong. What if I teach a boss? After all, Jong Yong had never gone out to practice, and his mind was just evil and could not be determined, so it was too risky to do so. Teach only the basics. Jong Yong is a person who can directly split the summit of Mount Everest with magic light. Wong shook his head. No. But that's about it. Although Berkeley said that the bravado seems to be very powerful. But Wong did not witness it with his own eyes. Maybe the Berkeley guy is talking too much. Just see it with your own eyes. Adapt to the situation. Wong thought so. After thinking about it all night, he didn't sleep all night, and the next morning, Berkeley led Jong Yong here. With a huge black eye, Wong still has to fight hard. It is really difficult. Archmage. Berkeley saluted the king. Seeing Wong Xingli, Jong Yong also hurriedly saluted. Archmage. Wong yawned and nodded. In the end, it is the Archmage of Kamar Taj. There is no need to force a shelf like Berkeley. After all, ability and fame are all on the table. Seeing Jong Yong, Wong looked up and down. 17 or 18-year-old young men, who are quite spiritual, upright, and look quite modest, pleasant, and have nothing to pick. For Jong Yang's first impression, Wong is still very satisfied. I am the Archmage of Kamar Taj, and in the future, just call me King. Wong said casually. Jong Yong was stunned. King, isn't that the librarian of Kamar Taj, the king who likes to listen to Beyoncé music? Jong Yong was a little happy in his heart. After coming to Kamar Taj for so long, Jong Yong finally met a familiar character. Yes, Wong. Jong Yong nodded, his eyes filled with light. To know, the film has limited funds and does not show the secret method of Kamar Taj well. For the role of Wong, it is not very prominent. But, as far as the identity of the king is concerned, at Kamar Taj, he is definitely a strong person. In the end, he was an archmage, and he was one of the only disciples that Ji Yuyi believed. There is absolutely nothing to say about ability and personality, so Jong Yong is still very satisfied with the fact that his guide mage is the king. Okay, I probably heard Berkeley say something about your situation, and I heard that you now know more than 300 sharp weapon magic. Without too many words, Wong went straight to the point. Jong Yong nodded and said without humility, well, following senior brother Berkeley, I have indeed learned a lot of things. This sentence indirectly affirmed brother Berkeley's teaching to him. This made Wang's favorability for Jong Yong increase a little. It is said that drinking water does not forget to dig wells, and to be a person, you must know how to be grateful. It seems that Jong Yong, this kid is not bad. Berkeley on the side listened to Jong Yang's words, and his face turned hot red. I couldn't help but roar in my heart. The sky is up, I really only drew a line. For the rest, I didn't teach anything, it was all up to him to understand. Of course, what Berkeley had in mind, Wong couldn't hear. Wong now just wants to test whether the flamboyant ability and understanding are really as perverted as Berkeley said. Wong got up and looked at Jong Yong and said, since this is the case, you use the ring of Lagadol. Wong said, raising his hand and making a demonstration. In the end, it is the Archmage. The king cast his magic quickly, and he didn't need to prepare for a while like Berkeley. Almost as soon as he raised his hand, two small round red magic shields appeared on both sides of the king's left and right hands. I think Berkeley should have taught you about magic shield magic. And the ring of Lagarder magic is also the basic magic of Kamar Taj, counting the hand style. It is an essential weapon for combat built on a magic shield, and if you understand more than 300 sharp weapon magic, it should not be difficult to master the magic of the ring of Ragadal. Wong explained seriously to Jong Yong. After the explanation, the king withdrew the ring of Lagardor. Raise your hand and show it openly. Jong Yong nodded. Of course, among the more than 300 sharp weapons that Jong Yong realized, there was such magic as the ring of Ragadal, so it was easy. Jong Yong then exhibited the ring of Ragadal. Same as Wong. Two red magic shields also appeared in Jong Yang's left and right hands. Although Jong Yang's speed of casting magic is not as fast as Wang's. But see the ring of Ragadal unleashed by Jong Yong. Wong couldn't help but be shocked in his heart. The ring of Ragadal comes in two forms, one is orange-yellow. The other is the red form. Generally speaking, almost no mage below the Archmage level can cast the red form. Because the red pattern is more intense than the orange-yellow pattern. The red form of the ring of Ragadal can at least resist sub-father level attacks. And one of the representatives of the sub-heavenly father level is Thanos. You can imagine how powerful magical energy is needed to cast it. Jong Yong, this kid, 3 days after entry, he can already cast the red ring of Lagardor. It's a little scary. Wong could have let Jong Yong directly cast the Crimson Chain magic. After all, Berkeley said that Jong Yong learned the Scarlet Chain magic in just 1 day. But think about it, if this is the case, it may let Jong Yong know that the Scarlet Chain magic is very powerful. So, Wong tried in a different way. It's just that Wong didn't expect that what Berkeley said was really not exaggerated. This Jong Yong is really a god man. Knowing that Berkeley really did not exaggerate, this king was a little hesitant. He looked at Jong Yong. Neither silent nor expressive. It made Jong Yong unable to understand. Wong, what's wrong? Looking at Wong in a daze, Jong Yong couldn't help asking. However, Wong did not speak. Although Jong Yong couldn't figure out what was wrong with Wong, Berkeley knew. Just now, the great mage king was testing Jong Yang's strength, but he never thought that Jong Yang's strength in this entry for 3 days would make Wong dumbfounded. Think about it. He also had such an expression. Berkeley understood Wang's mood very well at the moment. So Berkeley hurriedly walked to the king's side and whispered in the king's ear, "Archmage, it's okay, just get used to it, there will always be a gap between people." Berkeley comforted the king with a serious voice. This consolation pulled Wong back his thoughts. Glaring at Berkeley, Wong turned his gaze to Jong Yong. Seeing that he had his hands behind him, he began to circle around Jong Yong and looked at Jong Yong. He turned 3 or 4 times in a row, and almost didn't turn Jong Yong dizzy. Really unable to bear it, Jong Yong asked Wong, "Wong, don't you faint when you turn?" This time, the king stopped. "Don't say, it's really a little dizzy. You are the best in this batch of apprentices, otherwise you would not have come to me." Wong is a very straightforward person. Not only straightforward, but also humble, not very good at lying. Let Wong fool Jong Yong and say that Jong Yong is ordinary or something, Wong really can't do it. But if you give it all up, you are afraid that Jong Yong is too proud, so Wong commented very pertinently. This assessment is not false. Jong Yong is indeed the best in this group of apprentices. However, to say that Jong Yong is the best magic apprentice since the founding of Kamar Taj, this is not false. This sudden compliment made Jong Yong a little flattered. "Thank you, Wong. Senior brother Berkeley has always said that I am mediocre, and you are the first person to praise me." Jong Yong smiled at Wong and said, "What's the thing? Unremarkable. Do you call this talent mediocre? What about us?" Wong turned his head and glared at Berkeley. Berkeley almost didn't cry. He didn't want to he didn't want Jong Yong to be too fluttery. Although Wong was a little uneven about Berkeley's evaluation, but understanding Berkeley's original intention, Wong still said to Jong Yong, "Your Berkeley senior brother just doesn't want you to be too proud. A cultivator, cultivate the heart. I want to ask you now, what is your purpose in coming to Kamar Taj? What is your position for yourself?" Wang's question made Jong Yong ponder for a while. At first, Jong Yang's positioning for himself was simple. It's good to survive in the Marvel world. But now, Jong Yong wants to become stronger. In Marvel, there are bosses of the level of Thanos, and there are Omega-level mutants. Jong Yong wants to learn more magic. If he can stand in Kamar Taj, then basically, on the earth, Jong Yong can be invincible. As for why come to Kamar Taj, this is not his original intention. He came when he slept, and he couldn't help it. "Wong, I want to learn the secret method at Kamar Taj and protect myself and important people," Jong Yong said earnestly. Without big ambition and unpretentious answer, Wang Xin gave a high affirmation of Jong Yong, this young man. Wang patted Jong Yang's shoulder with his hand and said, "I hope you don't forget your original intention, Fang De always. Now, I will teach you the portal. I think you must wonder why I should teach you that you have learned portals. After listening to what I have to say, you will understand." Looking at Wang's serious appearance, Jong Yong couldn't help but become serious. Berkeley on the side listened more seriously. Archmage King lectures. Kamar Taj is the most knowledgeable person besides the ancient mage. Even if it is nonsense, listening to a section is definitely very profitable. The most important thing to learn magic is not on the surface, more, on a deeper level. Looking beyond the surface, we can see what is essential. Wong stood in front of Jong Yong and gave Jong Yong the first lesson. Portals are Kamar Taj's basic magic, but at the same time, they are also one of the most practical magic. In the entire multiverse, there are 11 dimensions in the timeline of our universe. And we are in 3-dimensional space. If you find dimensions difficult to understand, you can call these dimensions interdimensional spaces. The so-called interdimensional space is the space that is on the same cosmic timeline as us, but lives in the same place. Portals may seem basic, but in fact, they are controlled according to the strength of your own abilities. The pinnacle of portal magic is unlimited opening. Simply put, that is, do whatever you want, whenever you want, and nothing can stop you, not just on Earth. Wong looked at Jong Yong and said seriously. As soon as the words fell, Wong raised his hand and drew the portal. As the portal opened, a violent wind and sand blew into the library. On the other side of the portal, there was a desert of barren sandstorms roaring in the sky. This is a different dimensional space, a wasteland, and it is also used by Kamar Taj to exile the most evil people. When your ability reaches a certain level, the portal, you can decide the distance or size, just like this. Wong said, his hand gently pushing forward. I saw the portal suspended in the air move quickly towards Berkeley. Berkeley didn't even have time to make a sound, so he disappeared into the library. Although Jong Yong has seen it in the movie, ignoring Doctor Strange, they use portals. But for the first time, it's now up close. The feeling that the scene brought to Jong Yong was still very shocking. The shock made Jong Yong a little excited. After a series of actions were completed, Wong clapped his hands and said to Jong Yong, however, there are also certain restrictions on using portals. That is, you have to know the latitude and longitude accurately, and you have to clearly imagine those pictures. Of course, there are some different dimensional spaces that are clearly set to enchantment. If you want to open the portal, either forcibly break the enchantment, or you have to know the spell of his enchantment. If you are not easy to understand, you can understand it. Password. Wong looked at Jong Yong. For Jong Yong now, the best thing Wong thought of was to let Jong Yong learn the portal. Even if the ostentatious understanding is good. No matter how fast the speed of learning portals is, this ability to break the dimensional space still has to be studied for a while. This breakthrough in dimensions, it can be called space magic. However, after learning, it can only be said that you can run faster than others, and it does not have any practical effect. For Jong Yong, who has not yet returned to make a decision, this kind of magic is the most suitable for him. Well, you go back and think about it yourself. I hope, tomorrow, you can give me a surprise. Wong looked at Jong Yong and said. When the words fell, he was about to sit back at the table and continue reading. When he suddenly remembered something, he quickly raised his hand and opened the portal. Bang! With a soft sound, a distraught Berkeley came out of the portal and smashed to the ground on all fours. He looked up and saw that at this time, his hair and body were all covered with yellow sand. It seems that the barren place just now is not so good. I'm sorry. Wong looked at Berkeley and said, without any apologetic meaning in his tone. Archmage, why are you demonstrating me in class? Asked Berkeley with tearless tears. Wong frowned, looked at Berkeley and asked seriously, is it possible I use Jong Yong as a demonstration? Berkeley looked stunned. He glanced at Jong Yang's back who had left the library. Thought about it. Well, next time you want to demonstrate, talk to me so that I can be mentally prepared. Berkeley got up from the ground and patted the dust on his body. No way. Such a genius as Jong Yong, this magic freak. Using him as a demonstration, it is estimated that Wong is reluctant. This kind of talent is generally to be carefully cared for. Hey. Berkeley sighed and looked at Wong and asked curiously, Archmage, what did you teach Jong Yong? Wong sat at his desk and said, I asked him to practice portal magic to the point of perfection. Berkeley looked startled. What? Archmage, you shouldn't want him to break through the teleportation of another dimension. Wong nodded. This made Berkeley swallow. Although portals are basic magic, but breaking the alien dimension definitely belongs to high-level magic. Generally, only those who have reached the official mage level can learn it. He hasn't even started learning yet. This Jong Yong has only been here for 3 days to start learning, and he is really envious, jealous, and hateful. Berkeley sighed, and suddenly seemed to remember something. What if he goes back tonight and realizes Wong Bai glanced at Berkeley and said, "You think you can realize it with enlightenment? Is it true that people in other dimensional spaces eat dry food? Unless he can directly break the enchantment, or he knows the spell of a certain dimensional space, otherwise, how can it be so easy? Is magic really easy to learn?" Berkeley suddenly realized. Sure enough, the Archmage still has a way. Wong believes that the magic of portals can be strong or weak. First of all, if you can practice to the point of arbitrary control, then, in battle, you can almost be like a hanging. The enemy does not say touch you, it is difficult to get close to you. Secondly, convenience. A must for home travel. If Jong Yong can really achieve what Wong said, then basically there is no place in the entire multiverse that can trap Jong Yang's fighter in escape magic. And last but not least, it does not pose a great threat to the Earth. Even if Jong Yong learns teleportation magic to the peak, after all, it is not a combat type of magic, and it is unlikely that it will have a great impact on the Earth. This is the only magic that Wong can teach Jong Yong for the time being. Now it was only a day before the Supreme Mage returned. When Furuchi came back, everything was fine. With the trick of the portal, Jong Yong can practice for at least 2 or 3 days. Wong Ru thought. Early the next morning, Jong Yong came to the library with Berkeley. Berkeley came to invite Anne, and Jong Yong came to learn. Archmage. When the two saw the king, they first saluted. Wong nodded. Without taking care of Berkeley, he looked directly at Jong Yong and asked, "How about going back yesterday? Can you try? Where can you teleport farther?" Wang's words made Berkeley look at Jong Yong as well. Somehow, Berkeley was nervous. Instead, he said calmly, "Wong, I haven't tried it yet. I thought about it all night yesterday, and there were many strange characters in my head." Wong was stunned. "Strange characters? You try." Without unnecessary words, Wong said to Jong Yong. Jong Yong nodded and was about to raise his hand, when suddenly, Jong Yong looked at Wong and asked, "By the way, Wong, I always wanted to ask you yesterday, why is it so fast when you draw portals or use the ring of Ragdoll magic?" Yesterday, Jong Yong actually wanted to ask this question. He found that he himself was not as fast as the king of magic himself. This made Jong Yong a little confused. But yesterday he was too focused on thinking about the portal, so he forgot to ask the king. Practice makes perfect. I have used these magic for decades, naturally faster than ordinary people. Wong replied honestly. If you use it for a long time, it will naturally be fast. I see. After getting the answer, Jong Yong didn't ask more, just raised his hand and began to cast portal magic. The speed at which Jong Yong cast magic is not very fast. I saw him raise his hand and draw a circle in the air with his right hand. Yellow light flashes in the air, forming a dark space like a black hole, connecting to a different dimensional space. After the circle was drawn, another space slowly surfaced on the other side of the portal. Both Wong and Berkeley couldn't help but look inside the portal. It's good not to look at it. As soon as they looked, the two were dumbfounded. This, a splendid palace full of European style. Every wall, floor, and even tables and chairs looks particularly exquisite. A man and a woman were not far from the portal at the moment. The man was dressed in a golden robe, holding a golden spear, and his face was full of silver stubble. The woman wore a princess-like long skirt and dressed dignified and decent. The moment the portal opens, the woman just gave the man a kiss on the face. Although the woman didn't look too young, she was much younger than the boy. This scene made Wong, Jong Yong and Berkeley a little embarrassed. Berkeley couldn't help but whisper to the king, "This old man is really happy, so old, and so energetic." And at the same time, the man seemed to feel the power of a different dimension and broke through his own enchantment. He turned his head unusually calmly, looked inside the portal, and said in a majestic voice, "Presumptuous, who dares to break into my Asgard?" Wong and Berkeley were stunned. What's the thing? Here it is. Asgard. That person in front of him is not God King Odin. Quick, publicity. Closed. Something is wrong. Wong said to Jong Yong in a panic. The bravado of heavenly killing. Unexpectedly, a portal opened to Asgard, and just in time to see the Queen of Heaven making out with Odin. What a crime. Frightened by Wong like this, Jong Yong hurriedly wanted to erase the portal. However, too late. Odin had already walked through the portal, and the look on his face was not so good looking. Looking at Odin, who appeared in the Kamar Taj library. Wong was dumbfounded all of a sudden. No way. Jong Yong opened this portal and sent Odin directly over. This is good, it's over. What if you open the portal and send Odin over? What if I can't beat it? Online and other answers. Urgent. Both Wong and Berkeley wanted to die. Looking at Odin, who was standing in the library, holding the eternal spear and wearing a golden robe, the faces of the two were blue and white. The air was unusually quiet, and there was still a trace of embarrassment. Who actually opened the portal to my Asgard? The cold gaze swept over the three, and Odin's face appeared a little serious. Odin's tone was not heavy, but the words were harsh, and with his kingly demeanor, frightened Berkeley's legs to soften. Boom! Right at this moment, Odin gently smashed the eternal spear in his hand on the ground, making a crisp and powerful sound. Frightened, Berkeley immediately fell to his knees. Who is the other party? Oh Odin, oh God King, oh Father of the Gods, Lord of the 9 domains. Supreme Mage Gu will give 3 thin noodles when he sees it. Offended him, this is not the end of the ball. Berkeley panicked in his heart, kneeling on the ground and bowing his head and not daring to speak. I have to say that in the end, it is the God King Odin, who exudes unparalleled king majesty and demeanor. If it is an ordinary person, he really dare not look at it directly. Even the king, who has a certain status in Kamar Taj, was shocked by Odin's words and did not dare to say a word. I was thinking about how to explain this. At this moment, Jong Yong on the side suddenly spoke. I saw that he first saluted Odin as Kamar Taj, and then looked directly at Odin and said without humility, I'm sorry, I opened the portal, I am Kamar Taj's apprentice, recently practiced the portal, somehow opened to you, if it disturbs you, please forgive me. The flamboyant tone was sincere. In the end, he did the wrong thing first. This, if you accidentally see someone else being affectionate and infringe on someone else's domain, it is natural to apologize. One person does things and one person should do things, so he can't let Wong and senior brother Berkeley help him bear it. Wong, who was standing on the side, who was originally silent, saw Jong Yong say this, and couldn't help but look at Jong Yong. Sigh silently in my heart. In the end, newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. Boy, standing in front of you is Odin, the God King who is currently fighting in the 9 domains and dominating the 9 domains. Famous characters throughout the multiverse. Even Ji Yi saw Odin, who wanted to give 3 points. How dare you speak to Odin like that? Hey, Wong sighed silently in his heart. In the end, he has only been in Kamar Taj for a few days, and it is normal not to know. However, speaking of this, Jong Yang's action made Wong feel a little good about Jong Yong in his heart. Good boy, dare to be bold, really a man. However, let the apprentice resist, where will his face as an archmage rest? Wong immediately stood in front of Jong Yong and saluted Odin. Kamar Taj has no way to teach. If you want to blame, I am willing to go to Asgard to make amends, and please don't embarrass my apprentice. Wong said, glanced at Odin and hurriedly lowered his head. It is impossible to say that you are not afraid. I was stunned. Listen to the words of the two. Odin did not take care of the king, and his gaze fell on Jong Yang's body. Do you know who I am? Odin stepped forward and asked Jong Yong. Jong Yong glanced at Odin and nodded. Take the liberty of guessing, you are Odin, the father of the gods, right? As soon as these words came out, Odin's brows couldn't help frowning slightly. Unexpectedly, there were still unknown pawns in the 9 domains who knew his identity and dared to look at him directly. This was somewhat unexpected for Odin. Wong and Berkeley on the side were directly shocked. This kid, no, it's Odin. So how can he still be so calm? Is it so strong? Wong and Berkeley couldn't help but look at each other. Originally thought that Jong Yong this kid was just a high point of understanding, but he didn't expect that he was so calm and stable in his mood, which was somewhat unexpected for the two. For some reason, they actually saw a trace of supreme mage temperament from Jong Yang's body. You said you drew the portal. Just then, Odin spoke again. This is not a question, but a question. Jong Yong nodded. There is no denial. Odin frowned tightly, did not speak again, but looked at Wong Dao. He's just your apprentice. Wong Lian nodded repeatedly. Just entered Kamar Taj, studied magic for less than a week, and I hope that the God King will not embarrass him. Less than a week of magic. Can you break the enchantment of Asgard and open the portal to Asgard, and also to his palace? Odin frowned. Holding the eternal spear, he walked towards Jong Yong. Seeing this, the king who was blocking Jong Yang's body was a little panicked, and hurriedly said to Odin, God King. Before he finished speaking, he was startled back by Odin's glare. However, although he was afraid in his heart, Wong still did not back down for half a step. I won't hurt him, Odin said quietly. He seemed to be comforting Wong, although his tone was stiff, but at least, his words made Wong feel a little relieved. Shake the entire multiverse, the famous god King Odin. In a word, since he said that he would hurt Jong Yong, he would definitely not hurt. This will be the dynasty next to give way. Watching Wong move away, Odin slowly walked in front of Jong Yong. He looked at Jong Yong, did not say anything, just put his hand on Jong Yang's forehead. This made Jong Yong a little confused. I didn't feel anything unusual or uncomfortable. At this moment, Jong Yong looked at Odin, and felt as if he was holding some cult ceremony, but it was not easy to disturb. After a long time passed like this, Odin slowly removed his hand, and a strange look appeared on his face. The suddenly dilated pupils seemed to be a little shocked. It's just that no one notices these subtle changes. For Ji Yuyi's sake, I won't embarrass you, Kamar Taj. After a while, Odin slowly spoke. This sentence, like a death-free gold medal, made Wong and Berkeley both relieved. Kamar Taj Xie God King Magnanimous. Wong and Berkeley saluted. Immediately opened the portal and sent Odin back. As soon as Odin left, Wong wiped the sweat from his forehead with his hand, walked to the desk and sat down, sighing long. At the critical time, it is still the supreme mage who works. Anyway, Odin was finally sent away. Wong sighed. Looking at Berkeley, who was paralyzed on the ground and refused to get up for a long time, he said dissatisfiedly, at such an age, it is still so unstable. Throw Kamar Taj all over the face. Not up yet. Glancing at Jong Yong, Wong whispered in Berkeley's ear, how can you say that you are also a senior brother, and you have taught Jong Yong? You are like this now, Jong Yong must not question the strength of our Kamar Taj. Berkeley wanted to cry without tears, and did not dare to refute the king, so he had to silently hold his grievances in his heart. Heaven kills. He doesn't want to. This would not be true if someone else Berkeley, even if you are afraid, you will definitely put the shelf on the table. But the person who just stood there was Odin. Oh, my God. There is no dregs left to destroy Berkeley with a wave of his hand. Berkeley is just a trainee mage, how can this endure? I'm afraid, Archmage, Berkeley cried and whispered in King's ear. Wong frowned and scolded in a low voice, I'm afraid too. This is a truth. Afraid, really afraid. But, now like this, what do you say? Jong Yong must not doubt the ability of our Kamar Taj. Wong was slightly angry. A white look at Berkeley. I'll figure it out, Berkeley said quickly, looking at Jong Yong. Now, standing straight in the library. Berkeley stepped forward and was about to speak, when he saw Jong Yong saluting Wong and said to Wong, trouble for Kamar Taj. Jong Yong knew that he had run into trouble. Although the strength of Odin and Ji Yuyi should not be far apart, the two are in different fields after all. And the strong man of the Marvel world has a particularly strong sense of the field. Jong Yong made such a trouble, Odin will definitely form a bond with Ji Yuyi. Moreover, just now Wong was so anxious to block in front of him, for fear that Odin would hurt himself and would not express a little apology if he was open, and he was really sorry that Wong was so partial to himself. Anyway, it's been so long to cross here. Jong Yong also felt the warmth of Kamar Taj here. Everyone here is okay with themselves. Hearing Jong Yong admit his mistake, Wong was moved in his heart, and quickly shook his head and said, it's okay, protecting Kamar Taj is originally my responsibility. Although it is an official and polite statement, the voice is much softer than usual. At this moment, Berkeley, who was standing next to Jong Yong, hurriedly said to Jong Yong, Jong Yong, although you did something wrong, you just confessed everything to Odin and bravely admitted your mistake, this behavior is very commendable. When the words fell, Berkeley put his hands that were still a little trembling behind his back, and said to Jong Yong seriously, just now, the Archmage told me that your behavior is very commendable, and decided to make an exception to teach you a Kamar Taj's absolute learning, this kind of magic, only the closed disciples of Kamar Taj can learn, it is a very powerful magic, do you want to learn? Out of school, or can only closed disciples learn? No, when did Kamar Taj say this about his disciples? As soon as Berkeley's words fell, Wong was stunned. Wong looked at Berkeley, and for a while he didn't know what tricks Berkeley wanted to play, and was about to ask Berkeley, when Jong Yong on the side spoke, "I want to learn." 2 simple and direct words. Jong Yang's eyes were still filled with expectation. This made Wong stunned all of a sudden, and asked Berkeley with sound transmission magic, "No, when did Kamar Taj have a school dropout?" Still closed disciples. Supreme Mage Gu Yi is a relatively casual mage. There are no big shelves. So Kamar Taj does not have many rules, and the teaching is relatively casual. The only thing that is stipulated is that there are some differences in the title of mage. For ease of management, Kamar Taj's mages are divided into 5 levels, from the lowest to the highest. They are apprentice, trainee mage, formal mage, archmage, and temple mage. This level is still set by the master brother Mordo. Because Mordo manages Kamar Taj more. Although there are levels, everyone is a cultivator, and cultivation is cultivation, and most of the mages do not have such a frame, and they get along more casually. I have never heard of disciples and absolute learning. So Berkeley's words made Wong a little confused. Berkeley, with a "don't worry, look," continued to say to Jong Yong seriously, "Do you know why we were so scared when God King Odin appeared just now?" Jong Yong tentatively asked, "Is it because of strong strength?" Berkeley neither nodded nor shook his head, "Not exactly." Jong Yong frowned and asked puzzled, "What's wrong with that?" Sighing, Berkeley said mysteriously, "Because just now, Odin used fear magic on us." King Jong Yong, fear of magic, what is that? Jong Yong was a little puzzled. He originally thought that Kamar Taj's peerless learning was also a common magic such as creating mirror space. But what is this fear magic? Also, Jong Yong couldn't help but ask, "Odin will it be magical?" Berkeley affirmed, "Of course, God King Odin and Supreme Mage have known each other for a long time ago, and it can't be said that God King can do magic, but when the two communicate with each other, they always know each other a little. If you don't believe it, you ask the Archmage," Berkeley said, looking at Wong with a pleading look. Wong Muleng's sounded. "After pondering in my heart for a long time, what is the fear magic? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."